Go.
Okay, all right. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item are the minutes for the meeting of December 31st. Do you have a motion?
Move. Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Sweetie?
Aye. Motion stands. Okay, next item, encumbrance to be considered by the board at the first meeting January 14th, effective January 1, 2014. Where are those encumbrances? Heidi gonna?
I'm gonna present them
Oh,
with
you're gonna
financials,
talk,
but it's
okay.
just saying to date them back to the January
Oh,
1st.
so do you want to make a motion on that right now?
Yeah, before I do them.
Okay.
Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Sweetie?
Aye, motion stands approved. Okay. Next one is, the board's requesting a cash advance number 1 to the pre-sentence investigation fund 2082 in the amount of $2,500 to be repaid to the general fund when the 2014 pre-sentence investigation state grant funds are received or by December 31, which are passed. Oh, and that's 2014, that's this year. Okay, that would be the
So
motion.
move. Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Sweetie?
Aye, motion stands approved. Okay, now the financials, Heidi.
These are the first financials of the year, so all the contracts, blanket purchase orders, and the travel requests for the year that people put in place, that's what you just voted on to backdate them to January 1st, so they were in place at the beginning of the year, so we have all of those on there. We have an appropriation transfer from the contingency account to put appropriations in place for the 2014 FLIP program budget. It's a program for the juvenile court that was approved as part of the tax budget, but we did not know whether it was gonna be in a separate fund or in the general fund, and the state auditors came back and said it would be in the general fund. And then we have the cash transfer out of the general fund for that payroll advance for the pre-sentence investigation reporting fund in the amount of $2,500.
Okay. I have a motion.
So move. Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Sweetie?
Aye, motion stands approved. Okay, the next one is that we're requesting the board authorize the county administrator to execute in the case of a lack of quorum of commissioners and/or if sessions canceled on the regular financial day, the required approvals for county financials on behalf of the board during the year 2014 as authorized by ORC 30530. So that would be the motion.
So move. Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Sweetie?
Aye, motion approved. Okay, the next one is to appoint Blake Rear as David Lair's alternate as Ohio Public Works Commission, OPWC District 7, county representative to fill the remaining term of the vacated Tracy Jemison ending July 20th, 2015.
So move. Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner
Aye.
Spillier? And Commissioner Sweetie?
Aye, motion stands approved. Okay, nobody from here from Archives. Archives and Records are requesting.
No, she's here.
Is she here? Oh, I'm sorry, didn't see you.
I wore red so
You
you
were
could see
way in
me.
the back, behind. Okay.
Morning, Lori.
These are two contracts. The first is for the maintenance, the annual maintenance on our reader printer. It's pretty old. I want to keep it running because it would cost about $8 to $10 to replace it. It's connected to a printer and a computer so we can retrieve images from film and give them to people. We use it regularly for the QC on our microfilm, and we also use it regularly to search for tax records that are only on film. So I would ask that you would approve the maintenance on that machine, please.
Okay, you can read that one, please.
That was the microfilm one you just read about, right? Or
Yes,
the
the one
okay.
with,
First one.
I did the wrong one, didn't I? First
That's
one.
Oh, you
okay.
did the 895 one, not the 9-cent one?
Yes.
You want to tell us about the 9-cent one?
That's just our copy fee.
Okay, so you could do them both.
The Archives and Records Center is requesting the board approve and execute a maintenance contract agreement with Blue Technologies Incorporated for the Records Center's copy machine for a 1-year period at a cost of 9.0099 cents per copy. The Archives and Records Center is requesting the board approve and execute a maintenance contract agreement with Allied Infotech for the Record Center's microfilm reader printer for a 1-year period in the amount of $895.
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Sweetie?
Aye, motion approved.
Thank you.
Is maintenance, is someone on here for maintenance? But
I
they're
was a
asking.
little busy this morning.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, 11 below, I never saw that on my card before. But anyway, maintenance is requesting that the board rescind the motion from December 17th, 2013 that read approving hiring Brian G. Cormack for the position of temporary full-time maintenance worker, number 1905, to be effective January 6, 2040, at a rate of $12.91 per hour. He's declined.
That's why you had to.
So,
So moved.
Second?
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Sweetie?
aye, motion approved.
Just pass on the archives contracts. This first one, we just have an extra sign.
Oh, But otherwise, everyone else,
Everyone else.
okay. I'm here.
Imagine if they would have this one this week, 17th and 18th. Snowman contest.
It would have been more fire at the ice event.
Well, it's all of us.
It would be about around a 55-gallon barrel.
Oh, there's more, yikes. Yeah. Okay.
No, I don't. I don't think the Declaration of Independence has that many signatures.
Initial there, we did that. Okay, there's a couple of places here that are initial, but
Okay.
otherwise you sign everywhere.
All right.
All right.
That one's easier.
Plan's already handled. When I get warm though.
There's one in here. Ralph, there's one in here, I'm not sure which one, I think second or third. Did I get on there? Okay. Okay. All right, next one. Okay, all right, number 10. What we have here is there's a request to the board to execute agreement between the Geauga County Board of Commissioners and Chardon tomorrow to allow Chardon tomorrow to use the county parking lots located at 100 Short Court Street, 208 East Park Street, and the lawns surrounding the courthouse in Chardon for the purpose of parking cars, holding dance, sled dog demos, conducting the fire and ice event, offering snowmobile rides, and holding a snowman contest during the Winterfest event this Friday, January 17th, from 6 to 8, and Saturday, January 18th, from 8 through 2 p.m. It's our big Winterfest.
So moved.
Second?
Commissioner Reer?
I want to comment on this or ask a couple of questions
All right.
under discussion before
Sure,
we vote.
sure.
You know, I understand a lot of this, but the riding of snowmobiles around the courthouse and just some of the other events, who's responsible if they run into one of the monuments or take down some bushes or something, you know, where the war memorial is? I used to do a lot of snowmobiling, and it doesn't always turn out the way you want it to, especially if they're letting inexperienced people ride. I don't know what they're doing there, but I just wondered about the property damage issue that could arise.
And sometimes you don't see the damage till after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, I'm.
Do they have insurance?
I think they submitted a certificate of insurance, that's
Well,
generally
look
how
at
that's
this here.
done.
Let me see.
And then a comment that, well, Chardon tomorrow is not necessarily connected to the city of Chardon. I want to note that this is an example of the commissioners, you know, providing something for them that we really don't have to, and in a spirit of working together, I will vote aye on this.
I share the same intentions as Mr. Blake.
There is a certificate of liability insurance that they have put forth,
Okay.
and it's in the amount of, looks like each occurrence 1 million, and there's damage to rented premises over 100,000, medical experience for each person 5,000, personal and advanced injury at 1 million, general aggregate at 2 million, products, comp, and ag, 2 million.
It shows the
So-
commissioners as an additional
And
insured
the-
down there, usually in the lower left there, you see it. Joe?
Yes, the county
Yeah.
commissioners are additionally insured. Would you like to?
No, I just.
I mean, you know, that's
We,
always been.
it's there.
Okay.
Yeah, the coverage is there, and
And I think that's really important, because we should not have to pay for that
Oh, yeah.
in any way.
that's,
Well, you want, if someone's doing something like this, you want them to provide as much insurance as possible. See, the problem we've always had is with our course insurance, we have,
Yeah, we don't want it
I think it's
going
up to
up
$5
because
million
of them,
worth of
yeah.
liability. So we have deep pockets. So ideally, you want whoever's doing something on our property to get that as close to our limit as possible, so they don't then come after us.
yeah, the
after-
attorney's gonna go after where the most money is.
Right.
And,
I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of a double-edged
They
sword.
like to
sword,
sue
we have great
everybody.
liability.
yeah, right, yeah, I mean.
They throw everybody in the mix.
And, you know, hopefully nothing happens, but that's why they call them accidents, you know, because you didn't plan on running into something or tearing something up. You know, that wasn't
Fair enough.
in the plan, so.
Okay.
I did vote yes.
You vote-
I did too.
Okay,
Commissioner Spillier, you
Aye.
too? Okay.
yes.
Or aye.
That's all right.
I guess they're going to Melhart Park too, it did say that in there.
Yeah, well, they own that.
What, Chardon tomorrow does?
No, I mean, the city of Chardon owns
Oh.
that. We don't own that. If they wanna run through the fence.
Or through that wall?
It's not my problem.
All right.
All right, we have, 3 Eagle. Okay, 2 Eagle Scouts. The first one is honoring Casey O'Donnell achieving the rank of Eagle Scout. And the second is for Nick Mataraza achieving the rank of Eagle Scout. And this is Troop 91 in Munson Township. Both are from Munson Township. So I would ask for approval of these motions.
Second?
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Sweet?
Aye.
Dude, there's not a hard copy on this one? You don't have a hard copy on this
On which?
for the scouts like we normally do?
That is the hard copy.
Yeah. Normally it's like, we have two.
I don't know, Debbie, is there, I mean, we
I'll
can
just-
print another one.
I just make a copy
That's,
of
okay.
that one.
Okay.
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 Okay, the next item is looking at a proposed amendment by Article 4, Section 4.2B of the NOACA Code of Regulations.
There's one before that, isn't
Is
there,
it?
13?
Yeah, for Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have my glasses. Okay, yeah, the next one is requesting the board cancel session for Tuesday, January 21, 2014, due to the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday.
So moved.
Second?
Commissioner Rea?
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Commissioner Sweet?
Aye. Motion stands approved. Okay, the proposed amendment, I don't know that do we have that in front of us?
Well, you each have a copy, a hard copy of the Code of Regulations.
Yeah.
Okay?
I don't think that this has been gone over for 4.2B and for the governance, they're still working on that.
Well, this is what's currently effective.
Right, this is the current.
This is what's off their website.
Right.
Revised restate is August 9th, 2013.
Yeah,
So if
the-
you go back to Article
4.2,
4,
right.
all right, and then if you look at Article 4, which is on page 3, and then section 4.2 is the composition of the board, and then you go
Right.
look at the next page and you
We'll
look
see our
under
composition.
B, Geauga County, it's under like subparagraph I, and I. And right now, it's pretty simple, it's county commissioner, county commissioner, county
Right.
commissioner. So I was asked to add this as discussion because there's a couple alternative proposals that commissioners wanted to bring up regarding how we might request NOACA to modify this, understanding that there's a process, if there's a decision made on one alternative or the other, it has to go to NOACA and it has to go through their process. I mean,
The
all we can do is try to do what we
Right.
can to expedite it through.
And
Ultimately,
I think
they
we
drive
have
it.
wanted to have a rolling basis where our county engineer would be part of it, and then one of the county commissioners would be an alternate for each year, and then it would roll
Well, and that's
each
one of
year.
the, that's one of the,
That's one,
I mean,
right.
this all started because you
Right.
guys all agreed you thought the
Right.
county engineer ought to be on the board.
Right.
The problem
I agree.
is, we only have 3 seats on the board, and it's proportional. It's like US Congress, okay, so it's proportional. So, Medina County, with 192, or 172,000 residents, has 5 seats, or 4 seats. So they have the 3 commissioners and the engineer. Now, we only have 93,000, so proportionally, we probably have, if you did the math, I think we're probably better represented per person than Medina. But the problem is, because it had been suggested, can't we just simply have it increased and have it, the 3
Add
commissioners and
one.
the engineer? But
Right.
to be fair to everyone else, then you'd have to grow the whole board so that proportionally the representation stayed the same. That's kind of the dilemma.
And Medina made one of their county commissioners a municipal representative. They don't have all 3 on.
So they use one of their seats for, so
One
they have
min-
2 commissioners, a
right,
municipal
right.
representative, and the engineer.
Dave, can I interject something, would you mind? As an alternate, Let me address the comment that you made relative to keeping things proportional and representation fair and so on and so forth. It is unfair that our county engineer is not on that board. There is no other county that does not have their county engineer on board. And so I can understand the whole representation thing and keeping balance, and by the way, we're by far outweighed in terms of our influence on that board. We have 3 people out of 44.
Right.
And we have the least influence of any county on that board. But our county engineer, I think that the resolutions or the bylaws for NOACA should be amended to always include the county engineer. That is the most important person relative to this county, to any county, relative to what they're doing. Functionally, they're getting their tax dollars back for the roads and bridges.
Yep.
Every county should have a county engineer on there. We should amend the bylaws to say that. And then the proportional side, from a representation perspective, should say whatever you want to do proportionally relative to other representatives, county commission, and so on and so forth. Minimally, there should be a minimal standard. The minimal standard should be 1 commissioner, or each of the county commissioners, plus an engineer, and then let the proportional representation kick in from there. That's my take on it, sitting in that board, watching how it functions, and so on and so forth. So there is no reason why you couldn't request that. It's not been traditional, but there's no reason why you can't request it.
Thanks.
And additionally, I would also add that they've changed the way the meetings are. There's only 4 a year, one which is Friday. The next one won't be till April, the following is July, and the last one's in October. So there's only 4 meetings. After that, there's all these sub-meetings. For example, there's a planning committee, which is probably the most powerful. And it would be, if for any reason, I think our county engineer should be on that, because that's the one where the money and the road money comes through, and he has a lot of power on that. Because once they decide, then that comes up to the board, and it's just a yes/no vote. But putting certain projects in line and where they should be, that's a very powerful board. I would also,
Yeah,
so
well,
now we are going to have meetings, and, you know, it's important that our people are on all these different committees, and they go in quarters, and there's one after each, like there's one in January, and they go in subcommittee. There's a whole matrix, which I think you got that, Skip. So the matrix would allow for the different committees to meet before the big committee meets to ratify or they wouldn't ratify. And I gotta explain this also to you. Any decision that changes the composition first goes through the board of directors. After that, it has to go to each county for ratification, which means every county of the 5 counties have to approve, not the city of Cleveland, which is interesting. So it's a process by which you first request it, and then it goes to the next meeting coming up, not this meeting, because everything's in place for this meeting. They will not change anything. So that the next meeting would be in April. But first, any ratification goes to the policy and then the governance committee, kind of like what they do in Congress. You know, they throw it around these committees. That's already been approved. And then it would go to each county for final ratification. So
Would you mind one other comment? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Couple of things. First of all, I think we know the president of that board.
We do.
I think we know who that is. And it behooves us not to be timid on that board. Trust me,
Absolutely.
the rest of those counties are not timid. They will. That's a
Right.
shark pool there, and they will eat us alive if we're not, if we're timid. Secondly, there are 4 quarterly meetings. That is not to say, given the way Robert's Rules of Orders work and where organizations work, you can't call a special meeting and have things decided outside of the 4 regularly scheduled meetings if it's important enough. And so, anyway, from looking out for Geauga County's best interest, I wouldn't be timid in this matter. We're being harmed if we don't take an aggressive posture on this.
We have, in the last 10 years, garnered over $40 million for our roads and bridges. We've gotten a very large portion of the pot because the amount of money that comes into NOACA is a large pot in our percentage. While it is 6% based on our community, it still becomes a very large pot of money for us. So yeah, it's very important. What's important, moreover, is to have your county engineer on that policy TAC committee. That is extremely important, because that is where the roads are decided, where they're going and who they're going to. Frank?
Yeah, I heard David say it correctly. There are 3 county people on that board
Exactly.
now, which does not include Joe.
Yes,
So it's the 3 commissioners that are on that board.
right.
So,
Well, currently, it's Joe. When Tracy Jemison
Step
stepped
down
down.
for
he-
temporary.
It's
Joe was on there?
Yep, because if he's
As
not
an
on the
owner.
board member, he can't be on the executive board there.
Okay.
So we put him into it in, what
For
month?
the end of last year, but I think
For the
now
1
with the
month.
new year,
Right.
I think it now reverts.
It reverts
back
to
this,
the rules, because that was
which
a
the 3 of
temporary
you.
assignment.
That was just for the end of the year.
Which it puts Joe in a position where, you know, he could be on all these committees, but if he can't be in the executive part of this, I think that we're getting strangled.
It cripples him, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Got it, okay.
Well, the problem as I see it, and I am the newest guy here, and I sat in the audience as a member of the public when that there was action taken on NOACA that with the engineer because of Tracy's resignation. I think all of us are in agreement that the engineer needs to be on there. And the engineer has an alternate, and that alternate should be a deputy engineer.
Right.
Someone who
Understand.
knows stuff that we don't know. I mean, that's their job, that's their training. I mean, we don't know it. So the dilemma that we have, as I see it, is we have to put 4 into 3 or 3 into 2, being the remaining, the total spots or the remaining spots. And the issue is how we could do that equitably and fairly. And there's a couple of proposals that, you know, we could probably look at other proposals as well, but I don't know how many ways there are of solving this issue. The unfortunate part is that at the end of the day, somebody is out for a period of time. And what I would like to see is a system where personalities are not taken into account, that everybody, it's positions. It's not the face in that position, but the position, because everybody up here, due to circumstances like death and other things, are subject to change.
That's the ultimate change.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, so you need to, my position is you need to develop terms or spots where someone goes, and that rotates around, and if that's, assuming that's, everybody agrees that the engineer's spot is, you know, pigeonholed, only the engineer or his chief deputy is in that spot. So then it leaves 2 other spots and 3 people. And that's, to me, is the crux of the dilemma. And how we do that, I don't know.
Well, there's 2, I had submitted to me 2 actions. And I don't know if Commissioner Spitaleri wants to cover his suggested action first, and then,
Sure. Or I could talk about both of them if you want, or if you wanted to talk about the first one with the alternate.
well, I mean, the 2 options, I mean, the option that Commissioner Spitaleri submitted, what we're doing is modifying what's currently pretty simple. It shows in section 4.2B, I, and III, as one each held by a commissioner. Now we're gonna reserve the third one, III, for the county engineer. So we would request NWACA would modify the code regulations to fix that one there. And then the question is, you have two commissioners remaining, and they would be referred to as I and II for terms of purposes of being on the NWACA board. But we can refer to them, to take the individual people's names out of the mix, we can refer to them by their term, the date that their term as county commissioner commences. And the way that the law works is the commissioner that's on the gubernatorial cycle, along with the auditor, his term, or her term, begins on January 1st. And that was occupied by Bill Young, it is now occupied by Mary Samini. And then the other two commissioners' terms normally are elected on the presidential cycle. And then those end on, or those begin on January 2nd, which is the term that Tracy had, that Blake is in, and January 3rd, which is the term that Commissioner Spitaleri in. So, either way you do this, you start referring to distinguish with amongst the three commissioners, you distinguish by the date their term begins. And that was something I think I'll give Frank Annucci credit for that, because when we were mulling this around, that was a good way to come up with to distinguish those terms. So Commissioner Spitaleri's suggestion was that position I to be occupied by the term beginning 1/3, and that would be Commissioner Spitaleri. The alternate would be determined by that board member occupying that position. And then position II to be occupied by the term beginning on the 2nd, which would be Commissioner Rear. And the alternate would be determined by the board member occupying that position. I think the rationale was, these are the two newest commissioners, they need to get up to speed on the NWACA, whereas Commissioner Samini is very experienced and very familiar with the process. And that would be, at least for this year, that would be his recommendation.
Let me add to that. So what we have here, and you know, this is something that wasn't just a situation of putting the pen to the paper and just trying to, you know, connect the dots. This is a situation where, you know, I'm in a position, it's just a kind of a unique position to be in, because not necessarily the most comfortable position, because I know that unless the Lord takes me within the next 3 years, I'm serving here for the next 3 years. And I don't know where the election will bring Mr. Rear, I don't know where the election will bring Ms. Samiti. So next year at this time, we can have two new commissioners completely. So my position on this is that with Mr. Rear, I would love to be able to give him the year's experience so that next year he's seasoned and on board. I'd like to remain on there because of the fact that I know that I'm going to be here next year. And my other position, as far as the other alternative that we had, was that if we had two commissioners and the engineer on the board, the alternate would be the other commissioner. I'm not comfortable with that, and I'm speaking for myself on this one because of the fact that I've had experience myself of just knowing that people elected me for principles and basis that I believe in and put me into this office because of that. And I think that in respect to the voters of this county and the residents of this county that have given me this privilege, I should also be giving the ability to choose who I see best fit for that position if I am not there to represent me. And I can say this, is that my alternate has been Skip Claypool, and we meet normally for about a 2 to 3 hour lunch on Wednesday prior to those meetings, and he basically overloads my mind with all the different agendas, all the different issues, and keeps me abreast to a lot of this stuff. And for me, I probably spend more time with Skip, and Skip spends an enormous amount of time preparing for this, that for me, I choose that I can delegate someone that's assigned 100% focus on a lot of those issues that absolutely takes that 100% and that responsibility extremely serious. And I just feel that I know that my position and my view of things are going to be represented according to what I want to see and according to what the constituents put me here to try to promote. And I don't feel that I would have that same effect if another commissioner were to be in that position for me. And I feel that it would be a huge responsibility for them to try to be accountable to me when they should be just accountable to themselves. And I've had a situation where I tried to bring something forward, whether it was the fact that it was money put aside for specific issues of bike trails or not. I tried to make it even a motion that couldn't even be seconded to try to even go for a vote. And for me, the best judge of future performance is past performance. So I just don't want to go back down that road. And I feel that individually, I would like to keep the choice of alternate for myself. I'd like to be able to remain on that board just because of my length of being here, and with Mr. Rear coming in here, and hoping to see him next year, I'd like to see Mr. Rear on that board and the county engineer, Joe Cattell.
Okay, so the second, Commissioner Spiller started to explain the alternate proposal, which had been submitted to me by Commissioner Rear. And it was, the alternate, as Commissioner Spiller said, it was a rotational thing, with the third commissioner being the alternate. So the way it was expressed is that for this year, the two positions would be occupied by Commissioner Spiller and Commissioner Rear, and Commissioner Samini would be the alternate. And then in 15, it would rotate. Commissioner Samini would be back on the board, along with Commissioner Rear, and Commissioner Spilleri would be the alternate. And then in 16, it would be Commissioner Samini and Commissioner Spilleri, and Commissioner Rear would be the alternate. And then you just repeat the process. So it's just a cycling through, so that every 3 years, a commissioner doesn't have a seat on the board, but is functioning as the alternate. And it further suggests that if two commissioners are available, that if the alternate for the county engineer was available, given his expertise, that would serve as the alternate for the commissioners. And Commissioner Rear, and he can elaborate, was more the idea of having this core of experience always serving us at Milwaukee. So if you want to expand on it.
Yeah, as I said, 3 doesn't go into 2 very easily without decimals. I was trying to come up with a way that it rotated around in a fair manner, and essentially there's 5 people, being the engineer, his deputy engineer, and the 3 commissioners, and those 5 people would always be on the board, although rotationally. I have, with all due respect to Mr. Spitaleri, I have a problem with naming a person, any person, as an outside alternate, where we have a duly elected person sitting on the sideline. I can understand Commissioner Spitaleri's concern that because we're all different individuals, I may not have the same point of view as he does, and vice versa. The other thing that's been thrown into this equation that wasn't here in the past is you only have 4 meetings a year, not 12 meetings a year. So if barring a physical problem, some health issue or something like that, when the meetings are coming up 90 days in advance, you ought to be able to clear your schedule, and all of us should be take it very seriously, and I can speak for myself only, I can't envision a situation other than health that I wouldn't put this at the top of my priority list quarterly to be at this meeting. And so the need of an alternate is greatly reduced from where it was when you had 12 meetings, one a month, and the likelihood of a conflict was greater.
If I can
Go.
respond on that, and I'm glad you brought that up. This was a discussion that I had. We've been bombarded with all the emails from NOACA as far as all the subcommittees. And I discussed this in great length with Skip. Came out Skip about 3 weeks ago. And what I would like to do is I would like to attend all 4 of those meetings. However, I would like to try to involve, just like with the speaking engineer regarding this myself, is that in some of the committees that they have some of the subcommittees that we have assignments on, that might not be a bad option to also have somebody that is 100% focused on those committees. But as far as for the executive meeting, I plan to be at all 4 of those, especially with the reduction in time right now from 12 to 4.
Okay, I would like to weigh in, if I may.
Yes, please.
First of all, for the last 10 years, I have attended every single meeting that NOACA has, and we have garnered $40 million for the Geauga County. It's a very important thing that an elected official is part of that board because of the financial dollars that come through NOACA. The accountability has to be there. I've been elected by the people of Geauga, and I have represented them well, and in the last election I won very heartily, and I'm doing what I believe the people want me to do. I believe very strongly in a rolling basis, as suggested by Blake. I think Skip has done an excellent job. He's always there. In the last 13 meetings, Skip has been there. I have not seen any of my other colleagues there. But Skip has been there and he has done his job. And I think, he would be at subcommittee meetings if that's what my colleague would want. All the committees are set up. The agenda has been set. The problem I have with the assignments, the way they are, I've been slated on the board and have been voted to be president this year. And the way the rules and regulations go, it would take until April or July for this ratification to go through with the existing rules. I believe to disenfranchise me at this time, in light of the fact that the agenda's been set, it's been voted on, is a little disingenuous at this point. With all respect to my colleagues, I believe that I know that Ralph is on several committees. He can, if he doesn't want to go to those committees, he could very easily send Skip if he wanted to. I think it's important. I think experience does matter. Whether I win again or not is really immaterial. Each year stands on its own. The money that we garner for our roads and bridges this year will be put on the tip. The tip is set up. The safety lien money has drained away. Congress will have to reset cash flow for the roads and bridges because it's not all in granite. We've gotten lesser money each year. And this is an important thing for Geauga County, I agree. And I agree that there's a lot of people who can make a difference. I think 10 years is proof of the pudding. I've got a strong, hard record behind me. But I do know that the rules and regulations of NOACA are in place, and I don't see that changing rapidly. So it'd be a little bit backwards to, I would suggest us going with a rolling, but changing the one position where I would be on this year and off next year. I don't have any problem with that, none at all. So that would be my proposal.
ahead.
I see the dilemma as, we either come up with a doable solution that the majority will accept, or we revert back to the way it's been in the past, where the 3 commissioners are on there.
May I add one thing?
Go
If
ahead,
you
go ahead.
If you reverted to the past, each commissioner would have their alternate. And I would say this, and was my plan, to put Joe in the most powerful committee available where all the roads and bridges are decided. And he would run that policy committee and the TAC. And I think that that's where the decisions of where the road money goes. It's not made at the director board at all. It's made in the policy and the TAC committee. That is where it's done. I can tell you, when I first got on the board of Geauga, I agree with Ralph. It takes a while to get involved. I mean, it took me a long time to understand how this works. When federal money comes down, they just don't arbitrarily give you the cash flow. What they do is they expect accountability for every dollar that is spent. And unless that cash flow is accountable, it will not go to your county automatically. It just doesn't happen. So it's set, this MPO, which is the Metropolitan Planning Authority, has been set up to be a pass-through for the money, and then it goes on to the auditor, who has very grave responsibility with every dollar that comes to this county. And we have to be accountable for that. And like I said, I don't have any problems with any of the alternates that were there. They were always there, always there. And I think that says a lot for them. But it also, I don't think that you learn about what goes on in an organization by not being there. I think you need to be there. I have said this to that committee, you need to be there. If you are on this board, you need to be there. No, any other way, I just don't see. You can't say I'm too busy. You have to be there. And if you want your county to garner the cash flow, you better be at the table. Because if you're not at the table, you're not going to be heard. You're simply not going to be heard. And we have done that in the last 10 years that I've been here with County Engineer Bob Phillips, Mike Stone. I know Joe Cattell has been here during that time. And they have always made sure that the money for the TIP has been there. The transportation improvement projects has always, Geauga County has always got their share. Always got their share, more than their share. And I think that's important, because after all, we do pay this tax in on our gas tax. So that's where I just, you gotta be at the table.
Where I was going was, if we go back to
The other way?
the way it's been, then again, Joe sits on the sideline officially, unofficially, and because I've never even attended a NOACA meeting, because I hate to keep going, counting by weeks. But
Well, you're
I think
new.
this is, yeah, I think this is
You're
my,
new.
start of my 8th week or something. I don't even think there's been a meeting that I could have gone to. I'm not sure how it's set up, that with the subcommittee appointments, if you can put somebody on there that's not a member
Yes,
of the entire thing.
yes, you can. Yes, that's where the strength of who is presiding. If I am out of the rotation, it will go to Lorraine, and they will decide where it goes. And we can decide that we want Joe on that policy committee, which is the most powerful committee, which makes that decision. He will not be an outsider. Or he can be your alternate, which then he has all the powers of voting, just as Skip has had. And Skip would continue to be there, and I know he would.
Well,
I'm gonna be there whether I'm on the board or not.
I know that. Yeah, I know that.
The issue is that it's like sometimes you just have to rip off the Band-Aid. To get to where we want to go, which is to have the permanent position for the engineer, somebody's going to be unhappy. That's why I say it'd be really nice if we had another spot, but we don't, so, and I understand that, I understand and have empathy for Commissioner Samiti. I understand in Commissioner Spidlari's viewpoint. And I also, in the short time that I have been here, I've been distressed by the amount of time it takes us, not necessarily through our arguing, to do simple things like three times we tried to take one vote, but the other group canceled twice. So, you know, it's like, wait a minute, it takes us 3 weeks to take one vote. I just think that at some point in time, we have to get the cart started. If what Commissioner Samiti is saying is true, and I believe it to be, I have no reason not to, we can take this action, and by the time it works its way through the NOACA process, thank you. It goes through there, it could be
October.
the middle of the year or 3/4 of the way through. And no change in the status quo can be made until they make their action. But then this, this process is already in place. It doesn't have to be rehashed or forgotten about next fall. I mean, realistically, something, because this isn't a new problem. It's been going on for years. And no one apparently thought it important enough to modify for whatever reason. You can, you know, conjure up your own reason. I just think that, you know, the time is now to make a change at this level and submit it to the parent group, in this case NOACA, I don't know how else to say it, and then we're on pretty much their time schedule when they have meetings. I mean, you know, this would be done in 2 months if you, or so, if it was the old schedule with monthly meetings, right? I mean,
Right, monthly meetings.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, still you
there's
have
still
the
been that
ratification.
ratification.
Okay, so that was still a
Yeah,
3
and
months.
some of the big problems are the bigger counties or the city, well, City of Cleveland doesn't ratify, but, yeah, you're right,
Now, I'm just saying that
because of the schedule change.
at some time, somebody's gonna be unhappy. But this way, the process, whichever one we would decide, or if there's a third process out there that we're not considering or thinking about a different option, you know, at some point in time, you gotta start. You know, it's like anything else. It's I certainly can understand both of my fellow commissioners' positions on this.
Like, may I say one thing?
Yes, you're the chairman. Go ahead.
Well, but I'm trying to respect my
No,
colleagues here.
no, I understand.
I would just say, you know, if you don't want me on this board this year, the problem is I won't be off till well into the fall, and by that time it's too late. I suggest, you know, keeping the rotation as 1, 2, and 3 like that, so next year I will not be on it. I will be I would be an alternate,
Or just push it back a year.
yeah.
Just
I'm just,
enact-
that's what I'm
enact it toward the end
suggesting,
of the
right.
year, so that
Right.
it would go through the NOACA process.
Because it's gonna take that process to get through, so you're not gonna get your cake the way you want it. So I would just suggest, if you go with, if I may, that proposal you're suggesting, I will be on the board next year again.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Mary, is it the is the president's position a person or the
It's the
county?
rotation of those on the executive committee.
But is it based on the county? In other words, if you drop dead tomorrow,
No, they
one of our
would, they
commissioners
would
fill
just
your
pull
seat?
it down to the next, is what they do, they pull it down to, Lorraine.
Well, that doesn't seem right. It seems like it
That's
should
the
be
way
based
they
on
do
the
it.
community, not
Yeah.
on a particular.
But they wouldn't, first of all, it'd have to, your proposal would go through, nothing's gonna change until we can get this to the board and then get it to ratification. That's what's gotta happen. So all I'm saying is, if you want that change, and it's gonna take a good part of the year to make it happen, if that's what you want, when the change comes in, I would be on anyway for the next year.
So the third alternative would be simply to change the years in
That's,
Commissioner
that would
Ritter's.
be my suggestion.
15,
And then you'll
16,
get
17.
exactly what you want.
You know, just, if I could just add one more thing that I just want to clear the record. It was stated that last 13 months, that none of the other Commissioner
one?
Rear or myself weren't there. That's not true. I was there. As far as this bike trail that we've had this discussion for the last, I don't know, 6 weeks or what have you here, I asked that the board revisit this. I asked for the board to reprioritize where those dollars are being spent, to look into this, and to hold off on that funding for the city of Chardon for that bike trail. And in Mr. Catel's defense that was at that meeting present, he was acting as an alternate and didn't feel that he had the authority at that point to put his, though I believe his personal feelings was in support of me, but he felt that as an alternate, he would remain neutral. I looked to my fellow Commissioner Mary Smeedy for support. I couldn't even get a second. I couldn't even get a motion to be able to at least put it on the floor to vote. And it was a very difficult day for me because I thought that we're all looking out for the best interest of our county, and we're looking for the best interests of the people of this county and sensible dollars being spent, and it's just disturbing that I couldn't get support then, and 4 months later, 5 months later, you know, there's a wave of different support of the positioning with the bike trail and the funds and everything else, and it's tough. It's tough, and I'm put in a real bad situation because I'm pretty consistent, and I pride myself on being consistent, and I try to do what I say and say what I do, and I feel that that was kind of a bells and whistles day for me that turned on when I couldn't even get a motion from my fellow commissioner to support me and at least go in the extra step to try to have that reviewed, and I was there at the meeting.
Ralph was there at that meeting. And I would just say this, any project that goes through Geauga can only be sponsored by the county engineer or a city. The county commissioners cannot sponsor any projects. As president of Geauga, I have no power to control the money. I am one vote only. Ralph was right. Joe could have voted if he wanted to. He did not approve. That project of Chardon has gone through 3 to 4 years of tip evaluation as it worked its way up the ladder. Been voted on over and over again unanimously by the board. It was unanimously voted on. And I understand Ralph's position, and right now with the RID, I've got to agree. I don't like what's going on with the RID. I absolutely do not like it. And that is the one piece of, maybe one could argue is a lever. Well, I cannot at any time sponsor that bike trail, whether they use their money this year or not. I can never do that, nor can Ralph, nor can Blake, nor can any other commissioner on that board. The only one who could do it, and I will reiterate that again, is the city or the county engineer. And that is the way it has always been. And at this time, I would just say I would vote with my commissioners at this point because of what we're going into the writ. That is the way it is right now. So,
But Mary, you could have voted no that day.
I had no
Against the bike
reason to
trail.
vote no that day, because I had voted consistently with it, and it would have passed regardless. Regardless if that was brought to the table for a vote, regardless, it would not have stopped it. That board would simply not go along with that. You've got cities there that are going to go along with other cities.
That's true, that would have passed regardless.
It
But
would have
on-
passed
But on
regardless.
principle, you would have sent a message.
But I did
as a
feel
county
that way. There was
commissioner
no reason
where
at
you
that time.
stood on principle basis.
On
that
principle,
particular
I had no problem with the bike trail at that time. I had no, it was a connection of a county asset throughout Geauga County, and which would encompass almost half of Geauga County. That is an asset of the county, regardless of whether you like it or not.
Mary, do
Yes, sir.
Do you have any problem with the bike trail now?
Do I have a problem now? At this time, because of the writ, I'm gonna have to stand with my commissioners.
And if I could add on that, I work very, very hard to not do things out of emotion. And as far as the bike trail, I think it comes down to bottom line principle. If you believe in the cause, there shouldn't be, even with this writ, if there was a position of supporting that then, and you felt that it was a good decision then, and now all of a sudden something else happened, I don't feel that that's fair to Chardon to turn around and now all of a sudden you don't like that because they did something to you, or we have to look at things neutrally, we have to look at things independently, and I just feel that my position was, I had no bones to pick with Chardon then, I have no bones to pick with them in future decisions. All I need to understand is that they have put us in a real bad position. I understand, and I believe that my colleagues understand, that we have to somehow look to be able to, for the securance of the entire county, to make up those funds somehow, some way, because it's going to put a huge burden on our entire county. That our normal way of doing business, I agree with Mr. Rear 100%. Was this morning on this the motion that we did. We're constantly giving, that we have to tighten our belt. But the position of the bike trail to say, I liked it then, I don't like it now, I think it's very inconsistent. I don't like the feel of that, I don't like the taste of it. I stood up because I didn't agree with it then, I don't agree with it now. It has nothing to do with Chardon. I just feel that when we get our priorities straight of dollars being spent on roads, and our roads are 100% in shape, then let's move ahead to put that money into other programs. I have no problem with that. But when you see what we deal with on our roads, and we're living in an area that today, look at all the damage that's being caused to our roads because of these sub-zero temperatures. It's constant repairs, constant needs for help and support. And we're just in a situation that geographically we need to get our priorities straight. And that was my position then, was to basically say, let's revisit this. And if I could have had a support from one of my own county board members there, it would have spoke volumes. If we would have gotten thrown down, I understand that. But I believe in standing united for a good cause. And I believe that all of us want to serve the residents of this county, and that's what I tried to do that day, and couldn't get the support.
Well, I would just also mention that the money for any bike trails that goes through the Milwaukee comes from the federal government, and it only goes for bike trails. It cannot be used for any other reason.
That's not true.
It is true.
No, it isn't. I've got a copy of the map regulation, I can show you the section, and it's alternative transportation. which would include.
Bike trail,
the buggies-
cityscapes.
The buggies, any alternative form of transportation, which includes our buggies, the horse buggies. out in
Right,
the
horse
field.
buggies pass,
Okay,
right.
so any alternative, and it
Right.
says, if you read the regulations,
won't
the
go
map
for-
regulation, very few people in this room have read it, I've read it. If you read it, it says on-road and off-road improvements, which means you could in fact make improvements on existing highways for
That
the
would-
horse buggies.
that would include
which
a
would have
horse
been
buggy
a whole
trail.
lot more of value. How many people today rode a bike here to this office?
Yeah,
Not
I
very many,
understand
but
that.
the horse buggies are
But
around in
it
Middlefield
is
every day.
used for a bike trail or a buggy path, but it is not gonna ever be used for the road improvement, to scrape off what's on there. It would be used for paths, that's all I'm saying.
If I
Well, not
could-
perhaps, you could do it in an existing road improvement, because that's what the law allows you to do, out in Middlefield, so that the buggies would be safer, so that traffic would be safer. That is a viable.
Monies
and
cannot,
easily-
monies
Uh,
cannot be used in townships,
could I-
that's
could I-
separate, sure.
I have
Go ahead.
the floor for a minute. I mean, it's very clear that the bike path has been and will continue to be a contentious issue. People are emotionally involved with it, emotionally involved against it. The point is, what we're discussing is how we're gonna staff this NOACA committee. Because I'm new here, I don't have the history of what happened then or what happened or didn't happen and so on and so forth. And also, when we look at any proposal here or anything that's been discussed, everybody wants to compromise as long as they get their way. And, that's not how it works, or shouldn't. A compromise is, everybody takes, and we should all be setting aside our own agendas to try to arrive at what I believe is the end result, which is to have the guy that should be sitting on the board, or sitting on the board, which is the county engineer. We said going into this, this is gonna be a difficult situation. With the rotational thing, we could jockey that rotational thing around, but then, in this case, Commissioner number one, on the first, is not really giving up anything. And Commissioner number three is gonna be sitting there. Me, I'm gonna be essentially sitting on the sideline, which, that's not the worst thing in the world. Mr. Spitaleri suggested that the board member determine the alternate, each alternate, which leaves the third member out. So I'm not criticizing. Okay, where's Mr. Spitaleri's give in a give and take situation? And where is the Commissioner one's give and take in the situation? And me is I guess I'm Commissioner two. Yeah, right,
Yes.
the second I take office. Then I sit on the sideline and twiddle my thumbs for the next year, although I'm under the impression that I get to sit on some subcommittees and so on. And I guess
You mean as the alternate?
well, even just as either an alternate or just whether I do it as, because I'm a commissioner, but I'm not seated there. I don't understand how that, yeah, as the alternate, because I'd be the alternate
If you sit in there.
in that dormant position, I would be the alternate.
Wait, I'm
Sitting
sorry,
there.
what, now what are you,
I'm trying to figure out how we come to a resolution that everybody
gives a little?
gives a little bit.
Yeah.
And given the fact that NOACA has their own set of rules, if we enacted number two today, let's
Right.
just say,
Yeah.
where the
it's gonna have no effect till probably July.
Right, or later, or something
Yeah.
like that. So,
Yeah.
Commissioner one, which would be Mary, would stay in the same role that she has.
Well, you'd all be on the board until the change was made.
Until the next year,
It
which
would
I would
stay
then
the way
be
it currently
on
is,
the out.
which is the three of you would go, you would.
Okay, so,
you'd appoint
yeah,
your own
okay, you're
holders.
right, it would take, when it took effect, then Joe would come on as a member.
Right.
And
Right.
someone would fall off.
Right.
Well, I mean, Mary would fall off, or she would become the alternate under this
Right.
scenario.
She would become the alternate, but she's only really gonna be the alternate for
Couple meetings.
Right.
Maybe
yeah,
only
two
one.
Four-
meetings,
four
and
or
then
five
we're gonna
meetings
have
at
a
the
calendar year change.
Right, and then I'd
And
be
then
on-
Ralph would fall off.
No,
Is that
I would
right?
fall
Or-
off.
No,
No,
who
for
would-
the.
I
for-
would fall off.
Ralph
No,
would,
no, if we do it this year, you'd be off just this year.
Only halfway, not until the
That's
very,
right.
near the end.
That's right.
And then I'd come back on again, so
Correct.
what did that
Well-
didn't work.
well,
I mean, you could, to memorialize this, you know, your goal is to get Engineer Cattell on the board. I mean, you can do it one or two, well, you can do it.
well, yeah, one of us that's sitting there can just elect to send him as our full-time alternate to get that
All the time.
process going.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to come up with is, how can we get something in place that arguably somebody's gonna be unhappy, whoever that somebody is. We need to get it in place where
The goal is
we're
to have
all
everybody
unhappy
equally-
and we're all
equally
happy,
happy.
you know?
Or equally happy.
Well,
You know,
I would
it's
be
Either a half
out,
full or a half
I would
empty
be
kind
out
of
3/4
person.
of the way of the year, I'd be out, and then back in again.
Is
If
that,
you
is
go
that
with-
too, is that too much to ask? I mean,
What, 3/4 of the year, I'd be in, and then a
well,
quarter
I'm
I'd
just
be out,
saying,
and
then
I'd be
you're
back.
then you're back in and we get this we fall into the rotation.
I mean-
Is it, you know, because
I mean,
that way I'd be off completely. Well, because I would nominate, I would
There's
put the-
only 4 meetings, so you're
Yeah,
good.
but I would put
where
the
you're really
engineer
gonna
in my
be doing the
spot.
work is in the subcommittees, that's where the work is gonna
Right,
take
and I
place.
could do that, but I would be off
Maybe.
on the 4 meetings.
Yeah, and those-
And you're only gonna be off, miss 1 meeting.
If that,
If this was passed,
yeah.
you might miss 1 meeting, the last meeting
But
of
I
the
think
year.
it's kinda
And-
nuts
And
to,
Ralph, his concession,
my concession is I wouldn't be in
'cause-
on next year at all. If you put me in the first in there now,
You just push
next
the
year
whole
I'm
thing
off.
back.
this year.
No,
Yeah, this
she's
year.
saying, if you push the whole, if you
My
change these
concession is
dates
I'll
and
be
had
off
to
next year,
start
totally.
January of 2015, she'd be off completely then
For the next year,
in 15, and
completely.
you'd have this rotation.
Well, not completely, I'd be alternate.
You'd be an alternate, yeah, if you guys agree with that.
To get this done,
Or we need to have thousands of people move to the county. so we
Or
can get
leave
that
it the
force.
way it is.
Well, you could go make a resolution to make, you could start the process to make the change.
Yeah.
I mean, I would do that anyway, regardless, because that's in the best interest of our county, I'd start the process.
Right.
And so, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, the question is.
We should do that.
Do you,
It
do
might
you
take us
do
5
it,
years,
do
but.
you do it, make it
No, it's not
effective
gonna-
this
it'll
year, and know
take-
it's not gonna have effect until possibly beyond half year?
The end of
Or
the
you just
year.
do it now and say it's gonna be effective January 1 of 15, that's kind of.
January 1
I-
of 15
I,
would make
uh,
sense. And you'd have your way. Frank?
Just so you know, even if 10,000 or 20,000 people moved into Geauga County, it's not gonna take effect till next census.
right, it's not gonna make a difference.
won't make a
We won't
difference
have
till the
Thanks
next
for
census.
call- I
95,000.
thought I had a solution here, you just threw cold water.
Yeah, I know, it's just not gonna happen until the next census.
Good point.
You know,
I think
I'd
logically.
I'd like to make some concession, and by my part, I don't know what Commissioner Spitaler's feeling is on it. My end result is that, as Mr. Claypool said, we get something on paper that goes into place on a date certain. You know, that, whatever that date is, I have no
Well, for a
idea.
date certain, unfortunately, you'd have to push the whole thing back a year, because you could be pretty sure that even given the WACA's process.
It will
it'll be
definitely
done
go
by-
into place.
Yeah, whereas if you do it
And-
this year,
and-
there's no date
And
certain.
then, of course, there's so many variables and unknowns.
Of
You know, this
course.
could be all academic. I might not be sitting in this chair
Not me
this
either.
time next year. Mary may
May
not
not
be
either.
sitting in her chair
Right.
at this time next year.
I mean, now, again, the advantage of making it effective this year is that Commissioner Spitaleri would have his alternate for a good part of the year. So that's kind of, that's the give and take.
What do you mean? He would have his alternate?
Well, because if you guys, if the majority of you vote to adopt this option 2 as is, and it takes effect in 14, you're all on the board as NOACA board members until the NOACA board finishes their
Yeah.
process and it's made
Right,
official.
but the
Until
problem
this
is
is-
then the next year,
Well, then someone
Until
else
this
is off
is-
and you're
would be-
back on.
go into effect, until this goes into effect, we'd be operating the way you have been operating,
Right.
where each person names their own alternate for the,
Right.
for the coming, until this was adopted by NOACA, and then they.
logically, it would just.
Yeah, then these conditions would take into effect.
But-
I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, as far as, you know, my understanding in talking to the engineer is that if he's not, we have the ability to officially put him on as the engineer, as the member. If he's not the member and we stay what we're doing right now, he can't be on the executive board, and he's not in the position of being able to do what he needs to do there. So he could be on every committee on there, but at the end of the day, he needs to be an actual board member.
If he's alternate for
He can't
someone
be
that
the-
is on
he
the
can't be-
executive committee, that he can't do that.
Can't, no, nope,
He can't, he
That's-
won't get on the executive committee until he's a board member.
board member.
And that will not occur this year.
That's why number one makes sense.
It does, no, it wouldn't happen this year
Well,
anyway.
yeah, the problem is no matter
It
which
would
one
not
we have
happen.
to
Yeah, no
wait
matter
for
which
NOACA
one
to
of these
make
It-
we
it's not
adopt
gonna
it,
happen.
there's a time delay.
There's a big
Whatever
time
that
delay.
is, it could be 5-6 months.
See, that was part of those
It could be
changes,
9
that was
months,
part
I
of
don't
those
know what the
changes
hell
last
it is.
fall.
If you
I
had-
thought the amendment
if you
would have
had
been,
meetings every
you guys
month,
could just do this
but
and
you
would have
don't.
effect. But that was voted down, so it stays in effect, there's a ratification process with all the other counties. So there's, no matter what you do, it's not gonna be immediate.
Yeah, and even if I were to say, okay, I don't wanna be on it, and we said that.
Joe's on it.
Joe's
It'd
on it,
still
then
take- it would still
still wouldn't
take.
take effect until
Right.
it ran through those,
Right, machinations.
channels. Is that correct? I mean,
Right, that's, yes.
that,
I mean, if you, something happened.
To me personally, you know, I can do a lot of things. At the end of the day, I want a date, within reason, a date certain. In other words, as soon as NOACA can act on it,
You know,
that
as soon as
this-
possible is, it's, you know, like, if someone says to you, you're gonna get your paycheck as soon as possible, you're gonna wanna know, what does that mean? I'd like to know what the day is.
Well, I'm just saying, if we delay it and say this all takes effect on January 1,
15,
uh,
I mean, I look at Medina. Medina has one commissioner, one municipal representative, one township representative, and an engineer. You know, the part that I struggle with, and I'll be the first one to say this, that somebody could point the finger at me also, and I have to accept it. But I'm gonna use your line in this one and say, I was the greenhorn rookie coming in last year, okay? And if we had members on NOACA for 10+ years, why wasn't this brought up in NOACA to push to get either A, the engineer added, or B, get this changed? I think that's a question for you, Mary, to ask and
okay,
say.
I could tell you why, and I wanted to put RL on, but the other commissioners did not wanna give up their seats. Simple. I understand what you're coming from.
I'm
I
just-
agree.
I mean, I didn't hear.
They don't wanna come, they don't wanna change, you know, you've got 3 commissioners that are on the board, and have to go through ratification process, they don't wanna do it.
But from all of last year, I came actually in December of 2012, we talked about it, but it was, I vocally supported it, but at the same time, I was the rookie last year that just, you know, basically trying to just, you know, feel my way through this, but I would have supported, I supported here that our engineer should have been in there, you know?
I would offer that the reason, not meaning no disrespect to Mary, Commissioner Samiti, with the 2 commissioners who aren't here, I would offer that the reason this hasn't happened is because this whole process is painful. I mean, this is a process that I would really like to avoid because I have great respect for both of you. I haven't known you that long, but I've known Mary for years, and that's why I say this is a painful process. I never went through a divorce. It's probably worse. But
Gosh,
I don't
how did
know.
we get into that?
Yeah, it is, Blake, trust me.
Okay, I mean, I don't know, but I'm like, this is, you know, because somebody's gonna be unhappy.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to achieve the goal, to achieve the end result. I'm willing to defer the whole process. And when I say a date certain, it's not necessarily as soon as possible. It's pick a date on the calendar, put an X on it, and say, that's the date that this new procedure starts. And will that make everyone happy? No. Will it make everyone unhappy? Maybe. But it takes a majority to pass any of this. And I really wish Christmas came more than once a year too, but I'd love to see if we could reach a point where all 3 of us could be in consensus to a plan. I'm willing to
Well,
come, without, Mary, it sounds as though you're,
I don't have a problem being kicked off down the road, but it's gonna happen right away.
no, I understand that, but
And-
even if it was to
so-
happen on the last quarter of this year,
I mean,
you're against that,
well,
or
because,
period.
you know, the chances logically, if the goal is to make this occur, it seems to me we could put it in place and it will definitely occur on the 15th. It'll happen.
Of
Year 15.
okay, year
It'll be
15,
ready,
right,
it'll be
okay,
ready by
I'm
the
thinking of a calendar date, the
It will
15th,
happen.
okay, right.
Unless the
Year date.
commissioners change it and they go through this ratification process. What's really putting the gum in the works is the fact that it's, you know, the meetings are only 4 of them, and then, I'm just saying logically, it doesn't make sense that I would take 3/4 of the year through, and then be off for 2 months, and then come back on.
Skip, as my alternate, let me ask you, do you feel that if tomorrow or Friday, we were to be able to put this into discussion, that for the March meeting, that we would be,
It would be
that this
April.
or April, that it would
April.
be resolved?
Would it be resolved?
Would we be able to have that where all the process, even if we had to personally walk it through to all the different townships, not townships, but counties, if we went personally and asked Medina to get this through, Lorraine to get this through, Cuyahoga to get this through, that we did the legwork to have this wrapped up so that in April it'll be finalized?
I don't think, I mean, anything that doesn't impact anybody else, they don't care about. So
Right.
if it's just internal to Geauga County, if we're just swapping bodies, we're taking a name commissioner
Right.
out, putting engineer on, I don't think that's insurmountable. I think everybody would go along with that, because that's internal business.
And there's precedence
What we
done.
wanna do, what we wanna do. I don't think that the board's gonna fight us on that. I think you can get support for that, and I think they would vote along, because generally they vote yes to everything. As long as you've got a good case. If if we wanted to add the engineer and the 3 commissioners and have a minimum, change the minimum standard, that's gonna be hard to work. That which doesn't kill you makes you stronger, boy. And so it's worth it at the end for Geauga County to fight for that kind of thing. But to your question, do I think that us changing the labels of the people that are there, I think that's a doable thing. I think that that's reasonable.
I don't
think it
see
would
the
listen to
board
reason, and I
changing
think that-
I mean, you've gotta convince everyone on that board to make a change, and then you've gotta go through the ratification process. That's gonna take you to July at the minimum.
But I just pulled up the resolution to read what the, because it's, you know, the code of regulations is in flux right now, changing, and so I haven't read the current regulations.
There's
Find out
no
what the approval
regulations
process is.
change, everything is, it takes them
But-
forever. It doesn't, I'm
doesn't
just
have
saying,
to,
it
though.
doesn't
I
make
mean, you could-
logical sense to have your board
I
president
think
in the
that
middle.
the regulation says you propose something and you vote on it in the next meeting. I think that's the process. Now, could it drag out? Things drag out there because,
Oh, yeah.
you know, there's, you know, a lot of conflict of interest. But in
Right,
this
but the-
situation, there's no
but
conflict of interest. This
What's
is
the
an internal
conflict
thing,
of
so.
interest? We're just basically doing what every other person, we need our engineer on board.
I don't see the board as being, you know, objecting to this, or anybody on the board objecting, because it doesn't affect them. If it affected them, yes, now they're gonna fight for it,
Well, I
and there'll be a lot of
disagree.
discussion,
They're
but
going-
this is an internal
They're
thing.
not gonna change it midstream.
Mary, I mean, I understand your position that you don't see that you, the value of you being on there 6 to 9 months, then being off and
I don't have any
then being
trouble.
back on. But then
I
if
don't
I
think
look
it
at
makes
this,
logical
if I
sense.
look at this, then, I'm on for 3 months and then I'm off. In my position,
But you're
because
not
I'd be
off
the
because
next
you're-
one, I'd be the next one to fall off. Because I start on my date is 1/2.
No, under this, under this, you would be off, or no, Ralph would be off
Right.
next year.
I would be the one that would
He'd be
be
the
off.
one falling off. I mean, and that's, you guys can change that, whatever.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
yeah, you
Oh,
can
half
change,
hour,
yeah, that's
I'm-
real
I'm-
fair,
I'm-
yeah,
I'm-
that's real fair.
Yeah, the way that
That's
is
real
with
fair.
engineer, you and myself,
Yeah.
I would fall off next year.
Yeah, so then the argument would be, that wouldn't make
He'd
sense.
be on for 3 months and.
Yeah, he'd be on for 3
Months.
months, and then he'd be off for a year, and that makes no sense,
None.
because he's the only one that's assured that he's gonna be here next year. So, he could be, by this chart or this system, he could be sitting on the sideline while 2 people who are newly elected would be sitting on the NOACA board.
And then they could change it all over again.
Which
Well,
may not be a bad idea, but.
That's easy enough to change the rotation where you're off.
Exactly. I mean, it's acceptable to me to get this done, to use the number 2 example, and since best case scenario for a change, best case scenario, it could be 6 months before there's a actual personnel change. I mean, enact, you know, change the rotation.
Right.
We adopt that rotation.
Right.
It goes through the channels, but the actual rotation is set up where,
Or you're off next year. You must change positions with Ralph.
No, I'm just saying Mary finishes out the year.
Oh, leave it, so it'd make it effective the.
Well,
first.
she's gonna be here 6 months anyway.
Well, that,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, that's the other.
I mean, and
alternative.
then, and she finishes out the year. Who's on with Mary?
Then I'm out.
Who's on with Mary this year?
You are, Ralph. No, who's 2? You are.
1-1 and, okay, so it's the second option down, the one that's put at 2015 would move up,
Right.
term beginning 1-1,
Mary,
and then 1-2 is
and you,
my slot.
Right.
Which
And
I
then-
may not even be in next year.
right?
And then,
Ralph would be the alternate.
Ralph would be the
And if the
alternate.
both of us are gone,
So that's
then
this
it
year.
would be fine
And
for
then
Ralph, he would
the-
be,
The following year, we'd be going to 2016.
right.
Right.
Which would put
Mary and Ralph, and you would be on.
Mary's position,
Yeah.
whether it be Mary or not.
That's right.
Ralph, who's experienced, would be up on the,
He would be ready to go.
he'd be up that year. And the alternate would be whoever sits in the January 2nd position.
Right.
I'll make a compromise to do however we can do this and get it done so that, and again, Joe, but then Joe's off for the whole year.
Joe's
so
off- no,
For, until this goes into effect, it just stays the same, the
But
three
he would
commissioners.
be
Make-
put,
you can
but
make him
wait,
your alternate.
Joe would be,
But he's not on the executive
He
board.
can't be on the executive.
none of you will be on the executive board ever this year. That won't happen.
Yeah, because there's a process to do that too.
Right. But Joe could be put on that committee, that is the most powerful committee for the roads and
Okay,
bridges.
but when you just said nobody can be on the executive board, who's on the executive board now?
I am.
Just you?
I am on
And
it,
there's only one per county?
right. You'd have a switch, but it would
Okay, I'm
change,
saying there's only one per
it
county.
wouldn't change,
Being a commissioner doesn't mean anything unless you're selected by the other two commissioners? Is that how that works?
no, it's the board, they would switch, it would switch, yeah, it would switch, but it wouldn't change the rotation. I mean, at this time, the rotation would then, you
But
know.
at least with this, if we put the county engineer in 6 months, we would be able to have him on the executive board. If it takes 6 months.
it may
I'd
take
be willing
the
to
rest of the year.
commit whatever to try to personally walk this through to get this done. So that come April, we can just bring it to a vote. I mean, I could be very pesky with these people to say, you need to get this done.
Okay, you want to change the rotation before you take, if you're gonna make that
Yes.
motion, you adopt option 2? You
I don't wanna
change
do,
rotation?
I mean, we can put it to vote, but option 2 would give the other commissioners the alternate.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally, I cannot trust that, I don't feel it's right that somebody else, another elected official is going to be able to be my alternate. I think it comes down to, I respect Blake and I respect Mary. If they wanna have an alternate, they should be able to pick that alternate. I can go in there, all of a sudden Blake gets the flu and he can't make it down there. I go down there and I basically,
Right.
vote my way that's not relevant to where he wants to. And like I said, there's example A on the table of that happening. If that would have been the case, and it's just, I feel very uneasy with that. And it's not, this isn't a matter of personalness, and I do this in my business, I sit down when we have issues, and it's not a matter of personality, it's a matter of check your ego in at the door. This is business, and we need to run this as a business. There's changes that take place, we have to look at it as that. It's nothing, nobody dislikes anybody here, it's just business.
I would have a hard time supporting any of us picking our own alternate, while one of the duly elected, one of the three of us is sitting there twiddling their thumbs. I respect Ralph's opinion, but I hope likewise he does from mine. I want somebody that has I'm looking for the word, but has been entrusted by the public to sit in a position, and may have to answer to the public for any misdeed.
For their actions. Well,
Yeah,
for any
right,
action.
anything that would be there. I understand that any of us, that could come back and bite at some time, because we might not get a new commissioner elected that's as nice and agreeable as the three of us are. We could have someone who is very difficult to
How's
work
that an
with.
oxymoron?
We could have someone that was difficult to work with, and
Well, I
then.
hate that.
Yeah, and then that could be a real issue. But as far as the terms that it happens, you know,
Well,
the most is it's gonna make a 6-month difference.
yeah, I mean,
It sounds like to
the
me.
real question is, are there two votes here to adopt either of these policies? Knowing that if you adopt either of these policies, you're gonna walk it through the process, and to Commissioner Spilleri's point, I think based on what, you know, I talked to your assistant prosecutor, and she felt like, looking at the code, there was a way you could ask for special meetings and do things to accelerate this. So there's a way you can, you know, if a majority of the board wants this change to happen, NOACA has a responsibility to be responsive within reason to try and see it happen. Doesn't guarantee you're gonna meet your schedule, but they can't just lay back and say, no, we're not doing
Or
it.
their idea of emergency if a road or bridge is falling apart.
Well, and that
That's
may-
their idea of an emergency.
And, you know, that may be their response, but we gotta try if a majority of the board wants to try. But if we don't have two votes for one of these plans, the alternative is we got plenty of time to talk about this for a few more months and then come up with something that everybody
I
can
would-
agree and it
I-
becomes effective for.
I would make a
15.
motion to go with the option 2 with the difference of the changing the, so the first position would be on the board, the second position would on the board, and then with the first of the year, 15th, it would then switch, bump position number 1 off the board, I guess. 1 would be on the board, 2 would be on the board next year. How does it go?
Yeah, I got it. No, I know what you're saying. Yeah. It would just get bumped.
Well, under that scenario,
Actually, you just
looking
take the
at this-
15 and the 16 and you would push it all up and what you have in 14 would appear
Right.
as 16.
Right.
That's how you do that.
but looking at that,
That would get the process
and
going.
it keeps you on for 3 years in a row.
No, I'm off next year.
Can I make a
Not according to this chart.
No.
Can I make a comment relative to the
Well, then
decision
change-
that you're making?
Hold on, hold on.
I'm just reading the code of regulations, okay? And in the code of regulations, Article 9, which is amendments to these codes of regulations, says, the code of regulations may be altered, amended, or repealed only by a majority vote of the director, board of directors. However, those things set forth in Article 4 need to be ratified. I will suggest to you, if you look at the code of regulations, that the makeup of the membership is not in Article 4. That's in the general code of regulations. There is no rule in this code of regulations that says you have to go to the next meeting. You could make a resolution in an existing meeting, have a discussion, and have a decision made and voted on in that particular meeting. So in Friday's meeting, if we wanted to raise this up and plead our case, there's nothing that I see in this code of regulations now, granted.
Are you looking at Article 9 amendments?
Yes.
And it says, however, any matters relating to Article 4 shall be altered, amended, or repealed only upon written approval of each county.
And what I'm saying to you though, Dave, is that what we're talking about, the makeup of the board,
That's in
three
Article
commissioners,
4.
is not in Article 4. It's
This
in the
is-
general makeup, it's in Article 3 or one of the other
No,
articles.
it's in Article 4, Board of Directors.
The board of, wait, let me see, look.
It's in Article 4. Laura and I had this
Okay,
conversation the other
okay,
day.
Blake, we would start with what 216 looks like, where I would be on 1, and 1, 3, and then the next, let's see, switch it around.
Article 4, that's where.
So then, Blake,
that's
do
where
it,
it's at.
I would be okay
So
with
look at
Article 2 if
9,
you and I
it
are on
says
here this
anything
year.
in 4 has to be approved by each county.
Oh, I would.
That's the ratification process that takes so much time.
But I,
Well,
Stuff, you know,
Thanks.
I don't know with the ongoing argument, because I don't know the code of regulations and the articles and the ratification and all those processes. I hate to plead ignorance, but, I don't even know where this place is
if we
located.
started with the 2016, Blake, the chart was 2016, 1, and 1, 3 would be on, and then the next year, I would be off. And then it switches back and forth because there's only 3.
But this is why I'm saying, my exactly what your last statement is. My contention is exactly. It's critical that you get a year's experience under your belt with this to learn this process so that if you're here next year. I know I'm gonna be here next year. Mary's already experienced this. It would only make sense for our county to have Blake and myself there this year. And then I'll even step down next year, if that makes sense.
Well, that's actually what's
And
in
if it
option
hap-
two.
no.
But option two still has the third commissioner being the, and that's the, you
Right,
have a
but
problem with that.
we would put the engineer in.
So you would, whenever NOACA would come up with
And,
this.
like I said,
Would
it's
be you,
gonna happen,
myself,
and
and
they
Joe.
could decide to,
be-
can tell.
It'd be you, me, and Joe, and then
We
at
need-
the end of the year, it would be back to, who comes up next? Mary?
And you, under what we have right here, and he would be off.
For
and Joe.
2015.
Right, right. Yeah, you can change the rotation, but the idea is that everybody, right, every third year, a commissioner
Is
elected
gonna
on a
be
given
off.
day is gonna be off and will be
Right.
the alternate.
I don't have any problem being off next year. I don't have any problem with that, but since this is going to occur, it makes logical sense. It makes logical sense at this year.
Yeah, but
Well, I mean, if the majority of the board wants to make the attempt, and if it gets, the year gets on, it looks like it's not gonna happen, you can come back and modify the action and make it effective 15 subsequently, if you wanted to.
I mean,
could do that.
the compromise being, Mary's only on for part of this year.
Which would probably be
The
less.
compromise is that
8 months.
Ralph has agreed that the alternate will be the idle or dormant commissioner, the one that's down at the bottom of the triangle. And
So then we would be able to get the engineer.
and my
Yeah.
The engineer.
as soon
would
as
do it
possible.
myself.
I guess what, I mean, if we can all agree that getting the engineer on as quickly as possible is our goal.
As a full board member, not at all.
Yeah, but he would be, like I said.
Well, then he would have to get
Because
his,
neither one of you understand how this works at NOACA, the most powerful board, I'll say it again, is the TAC board, because that's the board
Oh,
that
he could
decides.
be on that now,
Oh, well, he will be on it.
and he could be
Because we've
on it
already
if he
put him
had a
on.
permanent seat once this was enacted.
Correct.
It doesn't change his position
No,
at all,
No.
other than he has more clout after this event.
well, he's
with-
gonna have a lot of clout because he will be on that board.
Yeah, but he'd have more clout because he'd be an executive board member at once a change took place.
Now, go
you
ahead
go
with
in,
your
you go
motion.
with
I would-
option
I
two,
get-
as it's stated here,
Yeah,
and you try and expedite it, and for some reason, legitimate things happen that make it not able to happen till late in the year, then you can amend this to say, you know what, we're just gonna push it back a year. And you come back and you amend this action. So you try,
Yeah.
and if it doesn't work out, you just move it back.
That's agreeable with me to get the ball rolling, and then we need to involve the other group into the timeframe mechanics and so on and so forth, and then we may end up having to as you say, amend it to do a different.
Just push it, the initiation back to 2015 to start this. That's all I can do.
Well, I think that
Makes
then we're
sense.
back in the same saddle. I think two things. I think we need to enact this ASAP on our part. We need to enroll NOACA to bring this on board on their part. And at the same time we're doing that, we need to finally put it in motion to try to get it so that all three commissioners are able to be on that and an engineer, and figure out what we need to do to be able to do that. And in fairness to us, it would make sense. But in the meantime, my position is I feel that Blake and myself, Mary as the alternate commissioner, and Joe Cattell as the permanent placement on there.
Well, this
And-
starts that.
and that's
There's
at
no
least-
It
guarantee
starts
on
that process,
Yeah.
and there's no guarantee what the parent organization, NOACA, how willing or unwilling
Well, you have to,
they, you know, in their time frame. I don't know how to say it, because,
you have to make, you know, they have to make a reasonable effort to fulfill the majority of the board's wishes on this
Right.
figure, that's all.
well,
And that's all we can try and, you know, that's all we can try to do.
So do you wanna just, do
Make
we
the
wanna
motion.
Make a
Make a
motion?
motion.
I
to
would,
adopt-
I would move to adopt this, what I'll call option 2.
Well, it's the Commissioner's Office is requesting the board approve
Yeah.
the following amendments to Article 4, Section 4-2B
Okay.
of the Milwaukee Code
Okay, here.
regulations, as it's laid out here.
I move that.
Do you wanna just clarify for the record, Dave, as far as the positioning on that?
Well, no, it's in.
It's what's here.
So,
It's in there.
It says printed, I'm sorry.
Says printed. So, for this year, positions 1 and 2 would be, this would be Blake, this would be you, Mary would be the alternate. For
Okay.
the following year, 1 and 2 would be
and I'm
Mary,
stepping down.
and you'd be stepping down.
Okay.
And then, in the third year, it's Mary and you, and Blake would step down, or
Okay.
whoever's in that position, and then it just repeats. That's what
Repeats.
this says. And then it
Okay.
says that if the 2 commissioners are available, the alternate of the county engineer could be, so in other words, if there's only 1 commissioner available, then it's.
Understand.
Two
it's the
of
county
us are at
engineer
a
and-
conference or someplace, or whatever, I
So
can
you have 2
imagine.
trained people from the county engineer stepping in.
So moved.
I
Second
move.
it.
Second.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Rea,
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier.
Aye.
Commissioners.
And I'd like to say, I want Joe on the board, I will put him on the strongest policy committee, and I think this is illogical to do this, because I'll be there through the year, through 8 months, so I vote no.
Okay. The motion passes, doesn't
Motion
it?
Motion stands approved. Okay, next item, ugh. Mr. and Mrs. Caliper, thank you for your,
I'm gonna turn on the, we have an exhibit to put on here, but maybe just turn it this way.
You want me to move?
Well, when we're ready to look at that, yeah.
Oh, okay.
You gotta say, yeah, just.
Or you could just be like a kid in the front row of the theater.
Make a little sock puppet.
Thank you for coming out today, as cold as it is.
No problem,
so
thanks
you
for
got
allowing us
do
to.
you have a thing, are you showing something here?
Not
I
me.
got,
Oh,
no,
oh,
we have
oh,
some,
okay, I thought you were.
we have some
Yeah.
information to put up
Okay,
Well,
you have the,
yeah, thanks again for allowing me to come back again. We at the last meeting, we came to you seeking, or I came to you seeking a resolution of support for our Coliker Fen Protection Project. And we had a long discussion. There was concerns about the issue of tax loss, and also we talked about public access. I did talk with the county auditor, and Frank's here today. Mr. Lee is here today. We do have a letter, you know, stating what the approximate tax loss would be for these 8 properties. It's not likely that we're going to acquire, I mean, we may not be able to acquire all 8 of them right now, but this would be like the total loss.
what's the 62, what is it mean by exactly?
Frank, you have,
Yeah. Well, Frank, could you explain the tax loss and how it breaks down?
Well, these are protected lands that'll be purchased or protected by the natural resources. And I did a quick Fen acquisitions, and it looks like it's if you look at the 78 acres, it's about $1,250 a year that would be lost to the county. When you compare that to the amount that's going to be lost in the RID for the city of Chardon, you know, this is a pinprick in the air, as I mentioned in an email. My support for this only is that it's, if you just look at the Coliker property, and I think that's what Garrett is trying to tell you, is that if he just approved the Coliker property, the other property would come along at a later date. And the Coliker property might be only $800 or $700. I don't know the exact number,
Yep.
but I surely could get it to you over a year of what that'll be. So it's, I mean, the back property that probably Bob used is probably a little higher. But I think when you look at it, this puts the Coliker property in a protected environment.
Okay, so the Coliker property, it's only $600.
Yeah, it's only about 600.
600, okay. So we could move to support that, gentlemen,
To,
if we were only gonna go with
The
the
natural
Coliker
history
property.
museum.
Okay.
$600.
Coliker Fen, which is protected.
Is this map,
It's on their property, it's been on their property.
That's here.
right.
is
That's
this
where
map
the real fun is.
accurate?
Yeah.
Does it depict the whole thing, or is there
This map is accurate. I mean, the Colikers have retained some of their existing property up
Right.
close to the
To the
Wilson.
road, right. I guess let me ask you this, Frank, because I'm a little bit confused, because last week, we were looking at
The entire enchilada.
the entire enchilada. I
Yeah.
didn't know that this was going to change today, as far as just the,
You can look at the
Caliper
entire
property.
thing,
You can look at
But-
the entire.
but
Yes.
I would suggest that if there's great consternation on the board,
right.
that you could approve the Coliker Fen, because then the Natural History Museum would try to get funding for that. Which it would make sense in the short period of time that the Natural History Museum has to get those funds.
I guess I can understand Mr. and Mrs. Coliker's desire to get rid of land they're probably not going to use and get compensated for it. I'm concerned with the amount of land, as we talked about a week or so ago, that all the tax deferred places are getting in the county, the amount of acreage. And unfortunately for this gentleman, he has to listen to our tale of woe about the Geauga Park District and whoever else that's buying property, and Case Western Reserve has a chunk somewhere, and I've got the paper here where apparently last week, or maybe not last week, but within a reasonably short period of time.
Yeah, because we had asked, I'll just interject there, when you were here last, I think at the time when I had looked at this, maybe when you were talking to the county about it, I thought there was like about 100 acres you already owned, and you'd kind of confirmed that in the county.
Oh, we own more than 100 acres.
Oh, yeah, they have
Well, we just
places.
found out you own quite a bit more.
Well, there's a mistransfer here.
Could you explain why it's important on the Coliker Fen? I mean, I think that's some of
Yeah.
the real pristine property that
Well, first,
Dr. Coliker and Mrs. Coliker
I mean,
are
first of
here.
all, we aren't the Geauga Park District. I mean, we're not
I
trying to-
said you're taking the hit
Sure,
for everybody
yeah,
because
yeah.
you happen to be sitting in that chair.
I mean, oh, I understand, yeah, we're very, very much focused on trying to protect some of the best remaining examples of the different habitat types in our region. So we're looking at high-quality wetlands, sites that have rare endangered species. And really, this particular property fits the bill. I mean, I think we have a total of 12 or 13 state-listed rare species on this property. It's just a really unique place. It's a site that really, if we're gonna hope to keep it a functioning fen of the long terms, and a fen is a unique wetland type that actually has alkaline conditions because it's groundwater that percolates through gravel deposits. We have to manage the property, we have to remove invasive species from the property. The fen itself wouldn't be in the healthy condition it is in today if we weren't constantly managing it. So this is I think, a really unique opportunity to protect the remainder of this wetland system. Right now, we just currently own the area that's surrounded in red on the map. We haven't protected the whole wetland system, but this is an opportunity to really protect the wetland as a whole. So it's a very, very unique situation, I believe.
Give you that, Mike, but again, I think I asked this when you were here before. You're gonna protect this unique piece of property for the vegetation and just what it is, the environmental variances or differences on there, and then what? It just sits back there, and the only people that get on it to see these unique plants and this unique,
Quite
event.
honestly, Blake, it's wetland now, nobody would go back there.
Ever.
You wouldn't be able to walk on that because
So it's protected already?
Well,
Well, part of the Fed, isn't it, the part of the Fed?
part of the
12
property
acres.
is protected.
But
But I
under
mean,
the Ohio-
you
under
wouldn't,
the
you wouldn't
EPA
take a
Wetlands
walk
Act.
back there to see it because it's wetland, okay? You'd have to see it from afar somehow.
Sure, and
Am
we
I
would,
correct, Eric?
absolutely.
Sure.
I'm Joe Keller.
Nice to meet you.
I'm the guy that found that property along with my wife in 1960. And there has been a really a trail of people coming, like everybody on Rain Tree has talked to Jim Bissell, the botanist, and they've gone down in the thin because there are solid areas where you can step. But there are also really mucky things, like Betty and the botanist were down there one day, and she went all the way down to her crotch.
Wow.
Whoa.
She pulled her out, there was one boot still in there, but anyhow, yeah, he found it.
Not an invasive
He didn't find
species
her
now.
crotch, he found the boot. We won't get into that. But anyhow, there are people who come back there and have been ever since the museum acquired it. And very shortly after they acquired it, there was a car that came and parked at 11 o'clock at night, and he was there all night, and then about 9 o'clock in the morning, the car went. All the neighbors wondered who it was. Well, it was a guy who went down into the woods, over the fen, and studied all these wild insects, which are nowhere else in the state of Ohio. But they are in a fen right near London. And what the museum is trying to do is do a study on this fen, and it's similar to the one that they're doing in London. So it may sound like the museum is buying this and just gonna keep it like a collection of coins, like the gold coins that Andrew Carnegie tried to give to the Smithsonian many years ago, and Congress said, we don't want it, because we don't want to give you a tax break. Now today, that coin collection is worth $1 zillion. And this fen will never go away, because they're all the way to China, there's this alkaline gravel, which the water pushes up. And the 11 acres on the hillside that we want the museum to have, every 3 feet or 4 feet, there's an artesian spring springing out. That water goes down to the fen. That's also finished stuff.
So not to interrupt, but so you want to preserve this?
Well, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, so, because that's what last week we were a little bit unsure and confused here, because you can do that as a private property owner, and you could donate it to them, and we have no say in that.
I know,
And you-
but the only thing is that, let me just say that Betty is 88, I'm 90.
Okay,
We are living and existing solely on Social Security.
okay.
I have no stocks, no bonds, no pension. I did family practice in Willoughby for 45 years. My income was on the lower end. I'm not a brain surgeon.
I understand.
And we sent 7 children to colleges for 72 years. They bled us out, you know, and I put their tuitions on home equity loan, blah, blah, blah. But we would love to give it.
Sure,
But
yeah.
I would just like to have a little bit of money for terminal illnesses, terminal living,
Right.
and that's what
And
I
I-
want
and
to
I-
sell it.
And I actually had a conversation yesterday with Dr. Glia, and he had explained that to me. And
Okay.
so what I did is I made a couple of phone calls, and, you have that property is 100% free and clear in your name. What they've got now is in a lot of these financial institutions, tongue twister, they have what's called reverse mortgages, which they basically operate where they give you the dollars, and you could easily donate this property to them, and it involves no public funds, and you get the money.
But they won't preserve it.
If you
No.
put the conservation easement on
It's
it,
not only the plants, there's a fox den. This, because we have not cultivated, the brown thrasher has come back. People have come to watch the birds.
right?
People have come to check the animals.
Yeah, we love it.
And the plants.
I think it's a great
It's
idea,
not a place
but,
where you can hike and tramp all over.
right,
It has to be preserved.
sure, and I agree 100%. I think that my position is, it says not on the taxpayer's back, you know? That's the whole thing, but there's
The
things in,
taxpayers will come and learn. The Boy Scouts have come and learned things.
right. But if it goes into a conservation easement, they still could do that, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, there's certain, well, I mean, if it were a conservation easement alone, we may not have the ability to
So if they
manage it.
donate it to you, you don't want it?
No, that's not what I'm saying. No, I mean, you're
He
talking.
doesn't do
They're
it.
conservation
looking for a
versus
cash,
easement.
cash incentive to give it, because Mr. Kelleher has clearly stated his financial position here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what, just so we
Dr.
get
Keller.
my 2 cents in again, they're not asking for money. They're asking for a resolution from the board
We're not getting no money
that the
from us.
Natural History Museum could take forward to their board. Okay, and however the Natural History Museum gets money, that's their issue.
But we discussed this last week's meeting, that a lot of it is public funding.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't here for the last
Clean,
meeting.
it's Clean Ohio.
It's
Clean
Ohio.
Ohio
It's
money,
Clean
which the
Ohio.
people of Ohio
So
voted.
it's your money and mine.
Right.
True,
So
but it's
I'm-
money that's earmarked for Clean Ohio. I mean,
Yeah.
it's gonna
People
be
voted
used
this
on
in.
If it doesn't come to
projects.
us, it's gonna go somewhere else.
Yeah, it's.
Because somebody else is gonna spend that money. It's like the infamous grants. Somebody always wants to do something with a grant, but it doesn't,
My
the money is
initial
there.
question was, and it's been sort of answered, but not necessarily directly answered. The Natural History Museum gets this piece of property, and they continue the preservation and maintenance, whatever maintenance that takes, to keep it the pristine area that it is. And I understand that you just can't open up the gates and let people just tromp on all the vegetation, because that would be counterproductive to having the thing in the first place. But there would be provisions made that people, whether it's by appointment, whether it's a set hours or whatever, that conservation people can go and walk on a gravel path or a wooden walkway or a bridge over a sensitive area, and visually they could appreciate what we're saving. That it's not something that's just gonna get saved and a fence go around it, and generations to come don't get to see it.
No,
And
it's students that will come. People will learn.
yes, but
It's not
we,
just
that's,
observing.
he's looking for a reassurance, Betty. that the
from,
museum would allow
from
it.
them, not you.
Yeah.
I completely understand where you're coming from. It's just that once you surrender the ownership to a inanimate, board, I mean, they're
Gary,
all
how does that
individuals and they may have their own things, but as a board, they may say, well, we're not gonna allow this, and that would bother me. I want people, I don't mind doing this myself. There's obviously, I read where you folks just bought some, $2.3 million worth of property in Munson in the last little bit of time here. I see this transfer or something, and I jokingly said to Frank Galea, the auditor, who lives in Munson, and Mary lives in Munson, that if you keep going, it's gonna be the two of you people that are funding the whole township. Three. Oh, yeah, no, I'm sorry, Ralph is in Munson. I forgot. So you three people.
Can Garrett answer your question?
Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, just to talk about it, public access, because I know that was one of the big issues at the last meeting. I mean, this would be an asset that we want the community to enjoy, to learn from. And in order to do that, we're gonna have to maintain it and manage it. But I think as far as public access, it might be kind of a 3 or 4 pronged approach. I don't think just even the lay of the land is conducive to just building a trail right through there and managing
I've never
it.
seen it, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough terrain, and it's, however, that doesn't mean that that we don't want the public to see it. What we'd like to do is offer public field trips. We can advertise the field trips here in Geauga County, in Chardon and Munson. We'd love to work with you to try to find ways to better, advertise these field trips. We could make them free of charge to Geauga County residents. They'd be advertised through the museum as well. So at least 1 or 2 field trips a year.
Kinda like what the Rookery does when you wanna go back and see the blue heron nest. That's really something to see. In a certain time of year, they let you go back there.
Sure.
It's kinda like prehistoric times, the
Yeah.
schlock coming down.
Yeah, it's and then we'd also, the second approach would be, we need to manage the site. As I said, we're gonna have to manage the deer population, so we'd issue permits so people can
For
hunt
hunting.
deer on the property.
Oh, that's a good thing.
Another way people could utilize it. And thirdly, if anyone wants to use the property, whether it's a school group or a outdoors club or an individual that wants to see the property or observe nature, we would give them permission to do so.
Are you speaking of that whole thing, that whole project, or just the Coliker property?
I'm
Because
speaking
you're not
of the whole
gonna-
project.
Okay, because you're not gonna be able to permit deer hunting in the fen part of that. You can't stop the deer from going through there, they can't read. So if they wanna walk across there, they're gonna walk across, but you can't have somebody in there tromping, trailing them and shooting them without expecting some damage to the vegetation. So you're talking about using some of those are, things that you mentioned are for the entire section, and I'm not sure that for the entire section, I'd be in favor of it. I probably, with some reasonable assurance that, as Mrs. Coliker said, school groups, students, people who are in environmental school groups or Envirothon and people that are involved in that they don't have free reign or free run of the thing, because that's not going to work, but that they can go in some fashion, get to the sensitive areas by walking on some wooden sidewalk or something, and then they can study and appreciate those things. Personally, I have no problem with that. I'm not in favor of doing the whole thing, because some of this land in the back doesn't say anything about it being unique, except that it's rustic and it'd be coming off the tax rolls. And it's not so much that it's coming off the tax rolls, but it's never going to be used again for anything.
But most of that property backs up to some of the houses there that have that
They're giving
property.
just
And
easements to it. They're
you've
not
been
giving
on
the
the
land
U
away.
property, that's a ravine.
Yeah.
That's not gonna be, nobody's gonna build in there. Of course, there could be somebody who buys unused property somewhere down the line.
And subdivides it to some degree.
Subdivides it, but they're not gonna build in that ravine.
What I'd like to do, I just want to be able to at least justify my position. I just want, this will take just a couple minutes on
Let me swing that around.
on something here that I'd like to just put here. I don't make a decision in good conscience without really looking into it, because it's unfair to everybody here. But as far as this, I went on and I guess, Frank, that might be a good question for you. That's showing another 200 some acres
Right here.
that
This
was
is-
just bought for.
This whole section.
That was just bought for $2.3 million in Munson. So that actually, unless it's in a separate parcel there, that it's broken up. But if we look at this is where my concern comes into play, is that we've got
Back up. You're in
these-
Society for Blind. Right there's the big one.
right here's the
Yeah.
big one that was just purchased for there's 161,000 acres.
Here, I'll roll.
if we look at a map,
161,000 acres they purchased?
no, 161
It was
acres.
sold, it was sold for, whoops, there it goes,
Say that
2.3
again.
million.
There was 161 acres.
Okay, all I hear 1,000.
Now, in this here, it says that there was 200 and, is there an additional 213 that still hasn't posted on here? That was just transferred?
This is
Well,
the
that
golf
one,
course.
that's the one. No,
This is
that's
the-
the
go ahead
Bass
and
Lake.
put-
isn't
Oh,
it?
well, that's Bass Lake.
Oh, that's
okay.
Bass Lake.
Yeah,
It's
Oh, that
Bass
was
Lake.
done,
Now go back to info.
Well, Bass Lake has been a project
that's been in the mix
What
for
are-
a
what are the,
long,
uh,
long, long.
Layers, or it gives the
Still
name,
takes that land
the
out
name
of
of
the.
who, the names for the parcels.
It did just
Who's
transfer.
the owner?
That's-
You
But
want
now-
to go on this
but
one
you-
here?
You've been working on that how long?
It should say,
Oh,
Oh, I mean,
as
we've been
long
working-
as
Alright, let me
you
go
and
there.
I were together,
Trustee.
back in
Well,
95,
let's go back.
94.
Yeah, it's been in the works for
That has been in the
decades.
works for a long time. Ralph, that didn't just happen.
it just happened.
I mean,
in
it happened
December.
on the transfer, but it's been in the works, is what I'm
Right,
saying.
but what I guess I'm saying is, that's a piece of property that up until now was producing approximately 25, close to $25,000 a year in taxes that are gone forever, that we have to run our county on, that those taxes next year, we're worried about the red,
Yeah,
okay,
the
of
red's a
losing
mess.
that money, but all of a sudden, this property here, $25,000 a year, we will never see again, and not for this year or next year, forever, life.
I think that's, but I mean,
But
you know,
hold on a second,
adjacent
hold on a
properties-
second. What I'm saying to you is
The Park
this,
District.
is we've got a situation where the Park District has almost 6,000 of these acres. And all over the board that we will never be able to get to. So if that 213 acres that, like, one of the questions that I have also is, when I was looking at the, go back to the history museum, one of the questions that I was a little concerned about was, there's 2 properties on Thwing Road that are owned by the Historical Society,
Natural History Museum.
or Natural History Museum, I'm sorry.
I can go to those.
So when I look at those properties, I did a comparison with the people next door. It just looks like basic land. You know, is there something there that is protected of a specific thing that, and I look at it and it looks just like any other homestead that's on that road that all of a sudden now is off of the tax map, acres and acres, off of the tax rolls and protected. My biggest fear is this, is that we've got a park district that has almost 6,000 acres. It's about eight acres short of being 6,000 acres in this county that we get 0 of. My position is we approved in this, and I'll speak for myself, me going along with this, and I sympathize with your position as far as I understand economy is tough, you all struggle in it, but it's a precedence that we set to when does the ceiling end on this? And it's a situation where people could say, well, that money goes someplace else, until people hold back and say, you know, people have the right, if they truly want to put their property in a conservation easement and protect that property, they can. But in addition to that, the tax laws stay. The tax laws stay on the property. It gets donated, puts into conservation easement, and the taxes stay. But we are going to put ourselves in a position, and this is the Cleveland.
This is off of Thwing. There's a subdivision here, these 3 parcels.
Those
here,
3 parcels
here, and here.
are owned by the.
It's the Sabusta.
Yeah, that was the Sabusta land, and did he not, it was in
He
his
willed it.
will that
Yeah,
He willed it.
he willed it
Well,
to
Sabusta
the.
was going to give it to the park system, but he locked horns with it. So then he was gonna give it to the, Board of Education.
Oh, the schools,
And he locked
okay.
horns with them.
Mhm.
So he came over to my property, saw the lights that I had, saw the fin that I had given the museum, and with that inspiration, he decided to call the museum. The lawyer, Nelson, I think was, well, one of the lawyers videotaped him and with his 2 nephews, and he gave it to the museum. And then after did you drive down Twain and see his house falling apart there on the property?
Mhm.
Okay, well, once the museum got it, I scrounged $15,000 from the mayor, from Judge Allen, and various people in Willoughby, took that 15,000, brought Dick Parker over, we excavated, took all the garbage, took it to the landfill in Painesville, filled the hole with good stone from the sand and gravel, et cetera. But I spent all that time, you know, and plus begging money. I got $2,000 from one of my patients who just sold his company for $8,000. So I have done a lot of above-ground archaeology, and I hate to see my wife and I shafted over. I understand Ralph's position, and I'm with you, Ralph, and, you know, this has been down the lane. That's why I mentioned Carnegie, because Carnegie worked hard to collect all these gold coins. The Smithsonian refused it because the treasurer of the country didn't want to give them the tax benefit.
Let me just add one thing so you guys understand where I'm coming from. I want to protect as much land and the taxpayers' money as much as possible. But we all moved out here to Geauga County because of the rural atmosphere. You can't have rural atmosphere if you're not protecting some land. I agree there has to be a point where we stop saying that not every piece of land can be protected. But in these particular cases where we've got wetlands, where we have an issue that nobody's going to buy that land, nobody's going to they would only fill that land in to put a house there. What good value is that going to be to us when this will make kids smarter and be able to have the residents come before this and make them more educated about what what we have in Geauga County. That's my argument. We all moved here because of the rural community. You can't have rural community if you don't have some parcels of land that are protected.
I understand that, Frank, I'm not.
Because I don't want houses, I don't want houses all over.
Right, but between the Geauga Park District and the city of Akron, when they consume the largest percentage
The city of
of
Akron,
this
I told you
property.
yesterday that the city of Akron and I argued, I
Okay.
went down to the BTA.
But
and
Frank,
lost
when,
it.
here's the
When's it
situation,
stop?
is let me ask you this, will you reduce your salary to compensate for the difference of all of these conservation easements that are going into to
No.
places? Okay.
No, because
but
when
we're
I
go-
reduce
we're
my
going to be
salary,
forced to get to
it's
that point.
insignificant
But
to the
it's-
benefit of the community.
But here's the thing, what's insignificant also, do you think that the Park District, when they had maybe just what the Natural History Museum now has of maybe 400 or 500 acres, did we think it was insignificant now? But is it significant today?
It depends on
6,000
where that
acres.
land sits, Ralph. It depends where it sits. Is it a benefit to the neighboring community or the neighboring houses that have the benefit to that? Is it places where people could go if they wanted to hunt? Is that a location?
If we look at
If we look at all the land that's
If we look at all
available,
the land that's on the Geauga Park District, parcels of less than half of an acre, less than 3/10 of an acre, are you gonna go and be able to hunt? You couldn't hunt with the spitball, let alone a shotgun or a bow on 2/10 of an acre.
Look.
What I'm saying to you is this, is when you start to look at these numbers and you start to look at where this county is going to be tax-wise, I have no problem if somebody, just like they had an issue with somebody, an article with a lady in Bainbridge who donated her property, I believe, to one of the conservation companies.
Yeah.
She gave that property, donated that, she's paying taxes. She's paying taxes for the remainder of her life. Her advantage was those 25 acres, she was able to take what the fair market value of the property and defer it off of her taxes over the next 5 years. But and that's great. She wants to protect her property. She made that choice. That property will never be able to be developed. But at the same time, it holds the county solid, because if that property transfers to whoever the next owner was going to be of the non-restricted area where her house probably is, they understand buying into that they're going to have to maintain the taxes on those.
well, the Collickers are still gonna pay taxes because they own other property in that thing, in that environment.
But Frank,
But they're
this
continuing
is-
to be good tax stewards.
I
They're gonna
understand.
keep the most valuable
They're
portion.
gonna keep the most
I
valuable.
would just add one thing for us to keep in mind, that large tracts of land that are developable, if they're developed as residential, as what Chardon's doing with that RID, which is gonna cost, not only is it gonna cost us, but every time you put residential homes in there, it's for every dollar you put in, it's $1.32 in services. It's really gonna burden us big time. So when a property is left in vacancy or conservation, it's cost something like, it's not $1, it's something like 33 cents. And that has been proven over and over again. That's something to think about. You know, do we develop this place like crazy, like what Chardon wants to? Why do we want to put 500 houses in? I don't see us people clamoring at the door wanting to build a house. Do you?
Well, I've said that from the beginning with this whole red issue. I've gotten more phone calls against the whole building project from residents of
I don't
Chardon
hear people
that
wanting
said
to come here
nobody ever
for that.
asked us if
Right.
we moved here because of the fact that
It was
we
like
wanted
it
a
was.
rural thing. I moved from South Euclid, okay? I
It's a-
moved here because of the fact that I wanted to be able to be in a rural area. And I also understood coming here that it's going to cost X number of dollars to
And
be
you're
here.
gonna have a septic
But at
and you're
the end
gonna
of the
have.
day, I'm not going to be able to live here if we continue to do this stuff, because I won't be able to afford the taxes to make up for all of these issues.
Taxes come from certain areas.
The big
The
burden
schools
is the
need the
school
money.
districts.
I understand
Health
that, but in fact,
departments
if we
need the
put our
money.
whole county into a conservation
I didn't-
easement,
We're not gonna
where's
do
our
that.
money gonna
But
come
that's
That
from?
ain't gonna happen.
That's not gonna happen.
That's certainly not the
That's
goal
not gonna
of our
happen.
organization.
Look,
I mean,
look at what this organization has done just in the last 12 months.
No. What you're
Last 5
looking at
years.
on Bass Lake, that's been in the works for a decade.
For a
Okay,
decade.
but at the end of the day, it comes down to this: is why couldn't somebody privately buy that?
Well, they did. Jerry Peterson
Okay.
did.
Peterson bought it.
So
No,
now
actually,
it's, so
three
we
investors.
were receiving taxes, 25,000 a year. And I'm surprised with you, I'll be quite honest with you, you as the auditor in an election year to take a position that you're for this, to look out for the taxes of this county, I'm shocked.
I'm looking at, well, you
I'm
shouldn't be
shocked.
shocked because you and I had the conversation yesterday.
Right, I'm shocked.
I'm surprised that you're shocked because we're all here for the betterment of the residents of this community.
Right.
And oh, by the way, if we put something in a protective shield, like the Coliker Fen, and work with the Natural History Museum so the Colikers can benefit, so be it. We're not talking, and they're still going to be paying taxes on the best part of their land.
Yeah,
They are.
our taxes are 6,000, Ralph, and the 5 acre on Rain Tree, the yearly tax is only $354. So we're really, I
Right.
individually am just, you know.
But let me ask you, I mean, the situation is this, is that if you guys donated that property, you would get the tax benefit.
Well,
And your savings would be there.
Well, I understand that, and you know, I'm not really too anxious to go into this reverse mortgage thing. I'm 90. I
Right.
don't know how much time I've got left. I noticed
understand.
that you were praying to God that you're gonna be around for 3 years.
Sure,
I
none of
pray
us
to
know.
God that I'm gonna be around 10 more, because I still have a brain.
Yep.
I'm homeschooling a kid on Shakespeare, and I'm teaching him German. I'm 90.
Right.
Will you be doing that when you're 90?
I mean, I can only pray to
So
God that I'm
anyhow,
around, but I
Mrs. Kelliker,
understand you.
Mrs. Kelliker and I would get on our knees to tell you, you know, do us a favor. You know, Lake County Welfare shafted me out of a lot of money. Ohio Bureau of Industrial Commission, they screwed me out a lot. And I can't tell you how many times I was in the emergency room and was shafted. So, you know, so the county's gonna get shafted out of $500 or $600 on county me? That's
Right.
too bad.
But let me ask you this, as if you set a precedence as a physician to say if you come in for this illness, you don't have to pay for it.
I would
The
say.
next guy coming in, why, is it fair to him for you to say you have to pay for
Well, you
it?
sound like the administration of the Cleveland Clinic. The Cleveland Clinic is gonna own this all, okay?
I understand, but you understand where I'm coming from,
Oh, I
is if we
understand,
set a
but-
precedence, okay, we're gonna deal with this how many more times? You know, and I respect you and you know that.
Oh, yes.
And I respect your position and you know that. I'm just saying from the bottom of my heart is that what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. And what we have to look at is as for the whole county's sake and for the future of what happens.
But the
it's
problem
just
is,
it
we
comes-
have no say in if the resident wants to sell their property to the Natural History Museum, or if they want to sell
But
their
We're
property.
not being asked to.
Put money to it.
We're not, yeah,
Other
we're
than
being asked to
$300.
give our blessing, so
Right.
that you can use our blessing as a lever
Well, just,
That's right.
the Clean Ohio, whatever the heck grant that was, or.
it's a Clean Ohio grant, and
Okay.
they require that we obtain township and
All
county
right, so
resolutions.
we're an integral component of them
Oh,
transferring the
Of
land.
that particular funding source, yeah.
Okay, what's unique about the rest of that property? I understand they have the fen that's unique to itself.
Yeah.
What is unique about the remainder of the 70-some acres that were in this entire
There's
package?
one American chestnut tree on it.
Oh, no, Betty, he's talking about the other.
Yeah, I can,
Yeah.
well, first of all, the fen kind of follows all along this ridge. It goes up into the first of these three, the backs of these building lots. When this subdivision was put in order to meet zoning requirements, they had to split it off into 5-acre pieces, and they created these long flag lots. So the flags run right across the fen.
Right.
So I
You
mean,
can't do
you're-
flag lots in Geauga County anymore. We don't allow flag
No,
lots
that-
on
that's why
developments.
I
That's
was
like,
on the zoning board at
You
that
know.
time, and that's why we changed the zoning.
So then they
Right.
can donate the property to you and put the conservation easement on it?
when you say donate the you mean donate a conservation easement or?
Well, the owners can donate that property to you, or they can place a conservation easement that the property will remain taxed.
No, if they donated it to us, it would still be pulled off the tax rolls because it would if it transfers into
Either
the
way.
ownership of
And
a
is there
501c3.
any concessions that you guys could make to us to have, let's say, a 100-year plan where we wouldn't lose the funding on our taxes based on your deal that you do with them and do something with us?
Yeah, unfortunately, we would love to make that kind of arrangement, but the cost over time is probably not something that I think our board would be willing to take on. What we could do, because we can't, it's hard for us to raise money for property taxes, especially when we're not required by law to pay them. I mean, no one wants to
Right.
fund that, you know. I mean,
But you
we're a
understand where we're at
nonprofit,
with
we're not, our money comes from donations, from private donors. Really, that's where all our operating money comes from. What we could do, though, is there is this 20-acre piece of land that the county owns, and we could
And what kind of
work
an
something
acreage
out to
price
pay-
are you paying for this type of property?
Well, I mean, this is 16 acres. We're looking at, I think it appraised at 175. It varies. I mean, we'd have to have the piece appraised. I mean, it's hard for me to.
So that's like prime real estate, that's over 10,000 an acre. So like almost 11,000 an acre.
Yeah, that's what we have. Our grant required us to obtain real estate appraisals on all these properties, and so this is how the appraisals are coming in. However, I mean, we're slicing pieces into two. It's not that, I mean, if you take a big piece of land and subdivide it, I mean, the pieces are worth more than the whole. So, I mean, I think a little bit of that's occurring.
Not if they're bowling alleys.
How much land does the county own, David?
How much land
Yeah,
does the
does the county own?
no, we have a lot of parcels.
Yeah, we have a lot of, I don't know the
That we don't
exact
pay
number.
any
I mean,
taxes on.
Right, that's right.
Well, we
Yeah.
don't
Yeah, that's
pay
one of the things
any
the commissioners
taxes
have
on
talked
all of
about
this.
is, Are there
up at
parcels
Chardon,
we really
none
shouldn't
of
know, right,
that.
we gotta get back out
There's a
there.
lot of it.
That's
I
why
agree.
like I had brought up originally, this parcel that's out here in Chardon, we should put that up for sale.
And
It's a lot of money.
that
What's
was,
the point of it? you know?
the point of that one was for the anticipation of county offices down the road.
No,
And
he's
you-
talking about, you're talking about the, right
Right.
here on
Right
Center
next to
Street.
the,
I mean, I'm at the point of saying what we need to do is sit down with the prosecutor to look to actually pull our offices completely out of the city of Chardon, to be able to make something as far as the taxes.
Oh, Ralph,
We
I
need
know
to
where
move
you are
this
at that.
forward.
They fought us, I know where you are.
Right.
I know where you are.
We need to.
I don't, let's
move
digress.
this-
Let's
move
stay on
this
this.
forward
This,
so-
and
So, you wanna
stay on the
make a
issue
vote
of the
for Mr.
Calicker's land.
Calicker's
I
parcel?
have personally no problem with resolution of support for something that is totally unique. I'm not sure that the 40-some acres at the end there, and I'm not picking on that guy because I know him and I think he's a great guy, but we have ravines. If you want to see a ravine, go to Big Creek Park,
There you
walk
go.
around, you can go up and down
Or
the
Westwoods.
ravines, you can go up and down the
Westwoods, yeah.
ravines until you twist your ankle. The issue with the Sabusta land and the park, or the museum, excuse me, owning them, is there anything unique about them? They were fields. Now, I understand that was his wishes to, I mean, he wanted to give it to somebody. He donated endowments to a number of, Chardon Schools got an endowment, a sizable endowment from him, as well as other people. But then, after a period of time, you're sitting on 25 acres or whatever that number was. You're sitting on a large parcel of land, which I'm the last guy in the world wants to build 100 homes on it. I mean, I was born here. Some people moved here because of the rural thing. I hate it every time I see a new house go up. But at some point in time, that needs to be used for something. It's my argument with the park system. We're going to put a fence around it, put no trespassing on it, and we aren't even going to let kids go out and play baseball on it. And it's like, well, that's a selfish attitude by a bunch of conservationists, and that's where I have an issue. A unique piece of property that's got things that you're not going to find anywhere. I got no problem with that. A big field that you can go and look at another big field and another big field. I hate to see all of those taken out of play. I understand that's how you can control the housing starts and so on. But that's...
I think generally we aren't looking for pieces that have fields. I mean, we are really focused on high-quality sites. The Sabusta property does have a really, really nice forest in the back. It isn't all fields. I think the fields came with...
Yeah, he did a lot of maple sugaring there and so
Up to the north.
on over the years. And I'm not for building...
They have had the school children out there to see that woods and counting some of the flowers. There's some trillium in it and so forth.
Yeah, I would just like to see...
We hope to keep the maple syrup going, but it's tough for the museum to do this. It's
It's a lot of work.
they want to do it, but they have not been able to keep up that maple syrup
Well, the
going.
museum archaeologists,
Children have visited out there several times.
the archaeologists have been over there and dug up the field looking for arrowheads because Sabusta gave the county a collection of 175 arrowheads.
So it
He
hasn't
found
been
that
fallow there. It is.
He was a unique guy.
Well, I think we need to take a vote on whether we're gonna go with the Caliker deal or we're gonna go with the whole deal.
I have
Let's
a
make,
comment from a
let's make a
citizen
vote
that's
here.
that I'd just like to interject into this conversation. First of all, I moved here
10 to 21.
because of the rural nature of Geauga County. I love the rural nature of Geauga County. But I'm also concerned about
Agenda 21.
our Constitution and private property rights and the ability that we save for future generations. We don't steal from future generations their rights to make decisions on property. And conservation easements on property and protections on property steals the rights from our future generations, kids and grandkids, for them to be able to choose what's right in their day and age. If we're gonna have this beautiful piece of property, which is apparently unique and so on and so forth, why don't we let somebody from Geauga County oversee that? I'd rather see our park system oversee that rather than the Natural History Museum. I don't know who's on the board of the Natural History
I think
Museum. As a
the
Geauga
Natural
County
History
resident, I have no
Museum
control over
has
that. I
to
can't
have-
appoint that, I can't make corrections to that. That's an unaccounted, unelectable group of people that we have no say over. And so, I'm concerned about the Natural History Museum. I'd rather see the parks manage that.
Well,
Because at least in
there's-
Geauga County, we have some say over that.
My family will have a say on that. That is with the museum.
I wanted to say, that the museum has the capability and the expertise to manage these unique sites much more so than the park district does.
How so? The Park District has all kinds of naturalists. They have what does the Natural History Museum have that our parks don't have?
Well, first of all, we have the herbarium. We have a collection of plant records from Northeast Ohio housed right in the building. We have experts in all the different fields of science. We have we have vertebrate zoologists who study the salamanders and the amphibians on all of our preserves. We have botanists who study the plants. Really, I know we act as we do a lot of consulting for, not consulting work, but we advise the Geauga Park District, the Lake County Park District on a lot of issues. When they're looking at a new property, they'll call us in to come out and do inventory work. So we really have a proven track record of, inventory expertise at knowing what we see and protecting really the best examples of these different habitats.
Dr. Colliker, if we were to approve a resolution supporting this and limit it to your portion of the land,
Yes.
I have a map here,
Yes,
and I'm not 100% sure that.
I'm familiar with the map.
Okay, I'm not 100% sure which pieces we're talking about, and if we pass a resolution, I wouldn't want to miss a half an acre somewhere that was involved in that.
Okay.
I see one here that says Colliker Phase 2 track, 16 acres.
Yes, well, that's 11 acres there.
But on an
I never
aggregate, is it
recorded it.
16?
It is, when you
The
combine
aggregate.
the aggregate of it, there's
It's-
two different
it's-
parcels.
The parallelogram right down there at the end, that's probably a couple acres, and
Okay,
the
right here.
line that's parallel to,
Here's-
there's 5
I see,
acres.
that's
there.
Okay, here's the
That's
issue
not
that I
conforming to
have.
individual parcels. That's
We
a-
have,
It's
on
an
this
aggregate.
resolution,
Part portion.
we've got all these parcels.
Oh, yes, I
Okay,
know.
and if we, and I don't think the consensus is to approve all of these
Sure.
parcels.
Okay.
But I would want to know and be inclusive of whatever parcels
Good.
that you have that fulfill this
Okay, well,
unique
this-
property.
Okay, well, this 5 acres here is like 3.1 acres under the high tension line. And then it's just 10 feet
How did,
along here.
how does it represent it here? Can I see that?
But the aggregate is
That's the
16,
issue
right?
that, because
You could go with that.
it has parcel numbers on here, and the map unfortunately doesn't have parcel numbers, and we don't want to do this twice, and
It says the
exclude any
16
of your.
Lake, it says the 16 acres.
Yeah, it says the 16,
Parcel
but he's
number
telling me
22.
that's not right.
All right,
It is, well,
The
Well,
16 is an aggregate,
here's
it's a
the-
portion of those two parcels.
here's the main parcel.
22.
Here, can you
01,
mark which ones it
it's
is?
just- You got it already marked. It's that one.
That's the parcel number.
That's the parcel number.
And
Oh,
then here's the
sorry.
5 acre parcel number, 22.
Where are we? I don't have a 5 acre, I have a 4.6 that's
Okay.
22024410.
No, that's not it.
I got a 4 acre that's 22026200.
We'll give it to you. It's 22, 012390.
12390, it's not on here. Oh, there it is, wait a minute, there it is, there. It's part of that 16 acre parcel.
Yeah, the 16 takes
The
portions of
16
both of those parcels.
22022400 and, or 012,400 and 22012390.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's this
those are the
piece of,
two.
those are the two pieces that we're,
Yeah, you're talking about.
You're talking about.
that,
That's
well, you're
entire-
talking about,
that's
well,
the
yeah,
entire
okay,
thing, yeah.
all right.
And that probably would be the only thing that the museum would ever get, ever. Because the rest of it's gonna go to my daughter.
Oh my God.
Okay, what I'm
Yeah,
trying
those are
to
the two
do,
for the
I'm trying
resolution.
to be accommodating, but be accurate if we do this.
Just to come-
I just
Those are the
wish,
people
would you
want
give
their
another
Xerox
hand
copy of these
out?
two?
I mean, it comes down to is people want their cake and it's like-
I can get it, but we gotta act on this, so we'll just go with these two partial numbers?
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Taxpayers' money.
We got the parcel numbers.
Yes.
I just
I understand.
disappointed.
I would move the following resolution supporting the Cleveland Museum of Natural History's Clean Ohio Grant application for the Coliker Fen Protection Project in Munson Township, Geauga County, Ohio. And
Only
the bulk of this is for that whole project, which we're not gonna
Just say
do,
the
but
parcel number.
to include
parcel number.
parcel number 22-012-400, and a portion, is what is written here, of a parcel number 22-012-390. And that is approximately 16 acres plus or minus.
So the 12 wouldn't be in it? The Caliper 12 there?
That's
in.
already
That's
protected.
already
Oh,
in.
that's
That's
okay,
already, yeah.
Just asking.
And then the rest of the resolution, whereas the site contains noteworthy wetland and upland habitat and frontage on the east branch of the Chagrin River, and whereas the Geauga County Board of Commissioners recognizes the need to preserve open space, protect water quality, and create opportunities for passive outdoor recreation, and whereas the proposed project site in Munson Township, Geauga County, provides important natural habitat for plant and animal species, including several state-listed rare species which are found at Coliker Fen and on the project site, and whereas preservation of the wetlands and headwater stream on the site will help protect and maintain groundwater supplies and water quality within the Chagrin River watershed. Then there's another, and, turn the page. And now therefore be it resolved that the Geauga County Board of Commissioners supports the Cleveland Museum of Natural History's application to the Clean Ohio Conservation Fund for the Coliker Fen Protection Project. Be it further resolved that this resolution become part of the correct copy of a resolution adopted at a legally convened board meeting on, which would be today's date, January 7th
Yes.
of 2014. And then we have to vote on this and then sign it. As I say, I move this to include those two and only those two parcels that make up this approximately 16 acre plus or minus of this, which is of sensitive ground.
So can you cross out the other stuff?
Oh, we're gonna redo the
I
resolution.
just checked, I checked the one.
Yeah, we'll redo it. I think
Would it be possible to include Galati, Pidcock, and the Coliker property, because those are the ones that kind of comprise the main fen system? The fen extends to the north as well onto the Galati property.
Which
So
one's
you're
the-
talking
oh,
about
that's
another
4 acres.
Yeah.
about 7 acres.
Yeah.
I mean, the Galati 4.5 too?
4.5 and the
4.5.
Pitcock 2.5, which
Where's
is down.
Pidcock? Oh, the
on the
Pidcock is right
point
next to
down.
Coliker, and it would,
And that would encompass the whole fen?
that would encompass the fen and the adjacent stretch of the
It-
east branch of the Chagrin River, which
Mrs. Coliker, Mr. Coliker, is that those two portions are important and integral to this project?
You know for sure.
Yeah.
The lawyer's property too, the back of
No, that's Huntsburg.
Huntsburg.
No,
Yeah.
Huntsburg is not
That's
giving
where
his
they-
property away.
Are you just?
Yeah.
That's
saying
a
this one or this
preservation
one?
thing.
Or is that
he's
not
talked
needed?
about a
Yeah.
conservation easement or something.
They're saying he's not gonna give his property away.
Well,
No.
if we in fact vote to do this, it is ridiculous to do this and not include the critical pieces to what it is that you are trying to achieve.
Well, Galati is,
But I don't want to include other pieces
He
that are
knows
just,
exactly which
Happen to
are
be
the-
there.
Galati and the Pitcock?
Galati has the fen on it, Pitcock has the, adjacent to the fen, the
water.
the stretch of the river there, the East Branch Station.
I would modify my motion to include those two. The problem being, I do not have the parcel numbers, and we'll have to fill that in.
We'll fill
but
that in and redo that.
When we redo this, the
I
final.
think you sent me a Word version.
But it's
of this,
about a
right?
4.2.
So we'll amend it and we'll
It's
make
this
sure
little strip here on the north
Yeah.
end, or whatever
So
it
it's
is.
7.2 acres.
And actually have them execute this.
So it's
If there's-
23.2.
If this is approved by. by the
7.02.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll have it corrected and they can execute it on Thursday.
Sure, that's okay.
All right. At Thursday's meeting, but that'll just be the action to go ahead if you guys,
Make the
Vote to do
motion
this.
now.
That
We'd have to
sounds
make a motion
beautiful.
now.
I move that we do this, and we can vote on it
you
now.
can, well, you can
or-
execute. the
No, we should
Or we
resolution.
can do
We'll have
it
an action
next
to
week.
execute the resolution on Thursday.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second?
Okay.
Commissioner Rea,
Aye.
Commissioner Spillier,
I vote no.
and Commissioner Smith.
Yes.
And if I could just make one comment.
Sure.
I just, it's Mr. Colliker, Ms. Colliker, it's passed, obviously, 2 commissioners against 1, I was outvoted in this. It's nothing personal to you, it's just responsibleness. I'm disappointed in the decision, based on the fact that we have to look out for the best interest, especially when we just came over a situation in Chardon, that there was a lot of dissension and a lot of, uneasiness about taxes, in which case even the county auditor spoke then and takes a position like this now. I just think it sets up a precedence for us that the majority of the county, it has to be understood and accountable for the actions that we take. So it's not to be taken personal. I feel that it was my responsibility, and just a responsible choice for me to say no, and just disappointed with some of the other members.
And let me just say this, Ralph. I'm here to do what's right for the residents of Geauga County. And if
Understood.
that means I have to vote a certain way, I'm gonna do that.
Understood.
And I believe that this particular situation that you just did not vote on, but the other 2 did, is actually gonna benefit Geauga County in the end.
Right.
And I'll do whatever's right for Geauga County.
I think we all feel that way, but we have different
And
spin
Ralph,
on it.
I would like to add, for 50 years, I went to all the medical meetings in the Lake County system. And when I was at university hospitals, and when I was in the Air Force. But I will tell you, I'm impressed with what you guys do. I bow from the waist. I love Mary's mouth.
I don't think they do, but.
I know, and what's nice
That's right.
about it is, she's right by the x-ray screen, so we can do a CT of the brain.
Oh,
Thank you.
And
Yep, thank you.
it's very interesting, because the property that I own was David Whitwright's great-great-great-grandfather's. Cyrus Wells bought it in 1870. He married a Heath, and they lived there.
Was that Heathrow thing then?
Yes,
Is that why
Heath Road. And then his son died in the old house that's there. And the only reason I mention this is, I hate to tell you, but you look just like Alan Whitwright did
Reincarnated.
many years ago.
So he's probably rolling in his grave.
no, he's
He's happy.
But well, Alan was really very clever, because, he ran the junkyard, he drove everybody in town crazy, he buried all the garbage up there.
In the Fed?
No.
He buried the garbage.
What if he was a county commissioner?
Chardon
Was
Woods
he a
Road,
county
he was
commissioner
my
at some
neighbor.
point?
I know, because
So when you
I
start
was
to
his-
dig all this
I was
stuff up,
his
you got these
doctor.
needles. and
If anybody got hurt in the junkyard, he brought him to Painesville, I took care of him. But, and then when his mother was dying, Myrtle had the name I mean, had the house and all the property in her name. So I brought a lawyer over there. I guided her hand. Well, she gave it to Alan, and then Alan gave it to Dave.
Don't go
You
incriminating.
know, I mean,
Yeah, everything, we won now, you know, it's like, once you get the deal, don't keep selling it.
Thank you very much.
I agree with Ralph on 99% of this.
Yeah.
This land is undevelopable. You can't build in there if it's a swamp and it's and the amount of money that we lose, well, I'm concerned about it. If it is the unique piece of property that you say it is with passion that you exhibit, I'm ready. If I made a mistake, well, time will be my judge. But I want to thank you for your patience in coming here. And I had no idea this meeting would last that
It's a
long.
record.
I
It's a
didn't-
record.
I just-
Well, I gotta go to the dentist, which is gonna be more
These poor
pain.
gentlemen in the back here had to, these meetings used to be maybe 20 minutes.
Well,
Do
these
you
are
need
these
a
are
note?
important things.
Oh, you have no school today, that's right, so you don't need a note, okay?
So you guys couldn't
What
get
else
to
are you
school,
gonna do
but you
today?
could get here, huh?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a nice
Isn't that
woman.
interesting? I mean, the
Yeah.
roads
Their
were
their
there.
decision,
Well,
it wasn't
see,
their decision that
I
school was
don't
closed.
indulge in
I know
things.
that.
They probably wanted to go.
I know.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they wanted to.
Right.
I thought, did you want
Okay.
this?
I move to, are we done?
I don't know.
Oh, we gotta finish the
Oh.
thing.
No, I also just real quick wanted to say, if any of you as commissioners, if there's events that you want the museum to help with, within the county, within the township, within Chardon, whatever.
So we got you on the hook, is that it?
Sure, I mean, well, we want to get out and lend our expertise and
I'd
show
like to
people
see
these
that Ham and
properties,
Todd
so.
collection again. I'm excited
Sure.
about that.
Well,
That's something to
thank you
see.
for that invitation,
Sure.
and I'm not qualified to say what we would want to see or not,
We'll
but
find something.
we will pass that along to people who have that expertise.
Or within the schools if you.
Anytime the schools can be involved.
Thank you again for
Thank you.
enduring.
Thank you.
with
Thank you,
us.
thanks for having me on.
All right, coming up, we have a meeting on the 9th. Oh, we do, that's Thursday. And on the 10th, we're going to, there's a
I want you to
celebration.
know my mother was
Kent
born
State.
on the
Kent
square
State.
above one of the
One of the,
things. So I came out here every summer to visit the Barnums.
okay,
You know Bert Barnum.
may I, can you, we have a, Ken is celebrating 50 years in Kent State with Margaret Clark Commons, Margaret and Bill Clark. They passed away about 2 years ago. Remember Margaret? Those two, yeah. So that, they're gonna have that at 3, and I don't know that any of us are gonna go to it. The Agricultural Fair Convention will be all down there, I think. The commissioners will hold the reorg meeting at 10 on Monday. Great fun again. So Tuesday, we won't be having a meeting because of Monday. And then Tuesday, we do have planning. And then on Thursday, the 16th, we'll have a regular session. And then Ralph, when you become chair, you're gonna have lots of meetings.
All right.
Okay, I'm gonna vote for that. Okay, so that'd be it.
I move to adjourn.
Okay.
Ralph
Yes, ma'am.
and Mary.
Yes.
Christine has left me a note, just question.